Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live stream. It's time for an A+ study group. If you're watching this on the replay, we're going to be starting in about 10 minutes. You're welcome to fast forward 10 minutes ahead, or you can just hang out with us, and you'll see me getting things ready for the live stream. Let's check, make sure things are working the way we would expect them to work. Since we have a total of 0 viewers coming in, everybody's just getting the notification that we are indeed live. Let's change the website, though. We have to change the banner at the top so that it shows that we're live and points people to the live stream, which ultimately is what we're shooting for here after all. Let's change, what is this under? You get to watch over my shoulder as I change the promo bar. And what else do we need to change? It needs to say my A+ study group is right now. Click here to join us. And it should go to /live. Very nice. Let's reset the cookie so it shows up to the folks who hid the message earlier. And there you go. That's updated. And there's people showing up. We have a live event chat going on. If you're watching this live, the chat is also live. It's funny how that works. You can go to professormesser.com/live, and you'll be able to see that. There's everybody who said they weren't coming. Let's get the presentations ready to go. What else do we need to do? I've already done the podcast preview earlier. What's going on in the backyard? I can show you that at least, right? That's what's going on in the backyard. There's a big yellow dot in front of it. There we go. What is the presentation working? Let's get Keynote up and running. I've just updated all that software. So let's find out. And now I'm getting a little story on my screen here. Oh, it's playing music, which is exactly what you want during a live event. Let's turn that down. Where's the turn down button? Mute. Now let's see if this is working. Hey, it is. Look at that. Who thought it wouldn't work? Oh, let's do a camera check, everybody. Let's start here. That's I seem a little low. In the saddle. Just a little bit. I feel like I should bring it down just a bit. I think I will. I think I'm going to mess up everything by bringing this down a little bit. But, you know, we got 7 minutes. What else am I going to do? Right? First, I just realized I didn't turn on the chat on the live page. I don't think the chat is there. So let's turn the chat on. It's ready to go. You're just not in it. That's the real secret, isn't it? You really have to be in it to win it. Let's change that page right now so that you can see the chat. Everybody's saying, you said there was a chat here. There's no chat here. But they can't tell me there's no chat here because there's no chat here. Oh, that page is updated in just a second. There it is. That page is updated. If you refresh the live page, you should get a chat there. Are you the only one that has no sound? Let's hope not. Let's hope everybody gets no sound. That will be a very interesting study group. No, I think you're probably the only one with no sound. I would have heard something by now. Let's change that screen though. Which one are we going to change? We're going to change this one. So let's change this. I don't know about this. I don't know. Now, see how high I am? See, it's these minor changes, and it messes up everything. So, of course, you do this, you know, prior to going live. There's even stuff in the shot that shouldn't be in the shot. Can't do that. No. Let's come up a little bit. All right. We're going to go with that. I think that's going to have to do, people. That's pretty good. Let's see if I can do this. Hi, everybody. Now you can chat. See, I can see you now. Northeast Ohio checking in. Here in the backyard. Oh, we still haven't done all the camera checks. Camera check. That's what's on my screen. That's what's in the backyard. In camera check. That's great. Okay. I'm happier with that camera. I need a camera I can click a button and it moves me up and down. That'll be the next one. That'll be the next one we do. Let's have a look at the backyard. That's what we were doing earlier. It's kind of nice. It's just rained. Just had rain. Welcome, UK. Welcome for joining us today. There's and what is it out there? 69 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a little humid though because of the rain. Feels a little warmer than the 69. Okay, now we are just about ready to get things going, aren't we? How much time do we have? 4 minutes. 3.5 minutes. Okay, we'll do A+ today. It's the A+ study group, everybody. Put this here. No, we need this here. What else do we need? I think we're good. When am I making CySA videos? As soon as CySA becomes something people would take. That's when I will make CySA videos. CySA doesn't quite have the legs yet. It's been out over a year and it still hasn't quite got the mo. It needs some more mo. Busybody, busy boy, biz boy. It needs some more momentum. And maybe it'll get the momentum. We're waiting on the mo. But maybe it's not there. Don't forget all the questions coming in today will be at professormesser.com/QA. So you can join us, follow along, answer the questions. We'll be doing that. I'll talk about it in a moment. Right now, I'm in the middle of making Network Plus updates. If you go to the website, there's plenty of new Network Plus videos out there. There are, I guess I'm halfway through, more than halfway through. Halfway through what's posted. I think I have 51 videos posted. There are 50 more coming. And I have about 10 in the can, as they say, ready to be edited. And so I've got to shoot I want to shoot the other 40 before the end of the month. So I'm pushing myself to get that done. But it's all about physics at this point. It might happen. It might not. But that's what I'd like to have done. That would be nice. That was the case. And then who knows what we're doing after that? I know what we're doing after that, but I'm not telling you what we're doing after that. I got stuff in the hopper, as they say. We're doing a lot of as they says today. Lots in the hopper. So it's a matter of getting there at this point. It's just momentum. It's just pushing myself, getting it done. Oh, I doubt there will be surprises. I doubt there's going to be a surprise. I think it's going to be more of course that's what he would do after he finished doing videos. Because we've got this time, after I finish Network Plus, the A+ isn't going to be updated. We might see an update on A+ at the end of the year. Maybe. Probably. Let's bet on it. Let's assume that's the case. Well, I got a little gap of time before I have to start on the A+, because A+ is effectively 2 of them. It's 2 exams to have that done. So that's going to be nose to the grindstone kind of stuff again. That'll be just churn again. I don't expect there to be dramatic differences, but obviously there will be some new things. Will I ever do Cisco? Well, I've got a Cisco study guide out there, the CCNT, ICND1 study guide. I'd love to do more Cisco videos, but again, it's about physics. It's about time. So that's it. Washington checking in. Washington checking in. It's not Washington over that side of the country, though, is it? It's only Washington if it's on the east side, right? Arbon, you just missed the conversation about CySA. It needs more Mo. It's basically what it gets around to. Well, speaking of Mo, he's not coming. I'm the one who's here, and we're going to do a study group. So we're going to do the study group right now. It's 12 noon. It's straight up. So let's start this nonsense. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the April 2018 Professor Messer A+ Study Group. It's our study group of the month. I do one of these every month. You're welcome to check in. Of course, there's all of the replays on my website. You can go back years and watch us grow over time. Maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe it's better if you just watch the new stuff. But welcome. We're glad to have you here. There's a lot of us watching live. If you're watching this in the replay, you won't be able to participate on the live Q&A, but you will be able to follow along. So that part's good. If you are watching live, make sure you follow along with the live stream and the live chat. We've been talking about the pre-show. So the live chat is at professormesser.com/live. That should make it easy to find. There's also a banner at the top of the page whenever I'm live, so you can always check in and see what we're doing with those things as well. This is the beginning of April. April the 4th is when this is being recorded. We've got plenty to go through today. I've got questions that I've made up. I've got plenty of things that are happening there. So maybe this will be something that you'll be able to follow along with us as well. There's one of the questions we're going to be going through. I think what I'd like to show you, though, there we go, is the monthly study group intro information. I will be opening up a studio line. You can call ahead, call in, ask a question about really anything. It doesn't have to be about A+. That's what we're going to do in the last half of the show. All of this information, by the way, of how to call in and the information on how to answer questions is available on the page at professormesser.com/live. Of course, you can subscribe, smash the buttons, whatever the kids say these days, at professormesser.com/YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter. I got a free question every day that you can answer on professormesser.com/Twitter. And don't forget about the voucher discounts available on the website at professormesser.com/vouchers. Don't pay full price for your voucher. You should get a discount on it. And that's where you get it from. It's plenty that we're doing there today. And of course, if all of my videos, by the way, available for you to watch for free, all of them online, every minute of every video. There's nothing behind a paywall. There's nothing you have to register for. It's just all out there for you to watch. So you're welcome to absolutely do that. Some people like to take it offline. Some people like a version they can take with them. And I bundle a bunch of stuff together with my course notes and my Q&A and everything. All the pop quizzes, everything gets bundled together. You can find out more about that at professormesser.com/download901. We have a study group every month, and I give people a webinar, I guess it's a webinar category of the CEU, Continuing Education Unit from CompTIA. And sometime in this first hour, I will tell you how to do that. So we will go through, and I'll make sure you're able to make that happen whenever we look at those details. But you can find out more about this on the CompTIA website. These days, I think most people are probably going to do the one thing. You can go to a website and do the CertMaster CE now, and you've now got one thing you can do to renew your certification. And you don't have to pay CEU fees. You don't have to take a test. That's a really smart way to do it. So I think that's the way to make it happen, is right there. But if you do collect CEUs, maybe even for something else, I'll tell you in the first hour how you do that, and just stay tuned. Just keep your ear open, and you'll be able to hear about that. The current A+ exam, as we see here in April of 2018, is the 220-901 and the 220-902 exams. So these are the exams that would allow you to earn your A+ certification. These two exams were released on December the 15th, 2015. So they've been out for quite some time. Usually they update these about 3 years, every 3 years or so. So you will see an update probably sometime at the end of this year. So you've got plenty of time to study for your A+ certification if you're already doing that. Plus, when they release a new version, let's say they release a new version in December. There's no guarantee of that, but we're going to guess that's what they're going to do. You'll still be able to take the current exams for 6 months. So at this time next year, you'll still be able to take the 220-901, the 220-902, and people will be. They'll be taking this version of the exam up until the final day it's available. I assure you, that's the way it works. So don't worry and never wait to take a certification exam, by the way. People ask me all the time, oh, should I just wait until December? No. It's much more important. It's much more valuable to have that certification in your pocket. This is only the type of exam you take. This is an exam number. The certification you earn is the A+ exam. Whether you take this version of the exam or you wait until next year and take the next version of the exam, you've earned the same certification. There's no difference in the certification. So that's where that comes from. You need to think about those things as you're going through it. But the big story right now, in April of 2018, don't wait to take the certification. Take the current version. Now, by the way, if you have your A+, you need to renew. There's the summary for you. The things you can do to renew your certification. You can take a renewal exam. You don't pay any CEU fees for that. You can take a higher level CompTIA exam. There's no CEU fees for that. Now you can also add, you can take the one-time training program CertMaster CE. You don't have to pay any CEU fees. The only time you would ever pay CEU fees is if you're taking a higher level third-party exam. You take an exam from another organization, or you earn CEUs 1 at a time, 2 at a time, 3 at a time. You do have to pay CEUs for that. So there's some financial advantages to taking that CertMaster CE or taking a higher level certification exam from CompTIA, because there's nothing you have to pay for extra. I kind of like that. This is a summary of these two exams, the 22901 and the 22902. Here's what they look like without my head on top of them. You can see it's 2 exams you have to take. And by the way, there's no order you have to take these in. You could take the 22902 first and then take the 22901. And there's also no time that you have to take between. There's no time limit or countdown. I've seen that recently. For some reason, people think once you take the first exam, you've got a year. That's not true at all. You could take the 22902 on December the 15th of 2015 and then wait until next year, the day before retirement, and take the 22901 and you'd be A+ certified. Now, you could do 3.5 years between. I don't recommend you do that, but you could technically go 3.5 years between certification exams and still earn your A+ certification. As crazy as that sounds. These are all the topics. We're going to go through all these topics today. We're going to talk about all of these things. I also, for those who aren't familiar with my pop quiz collection, very quickly, I've got questions ready for you. I always tell you, get a good book, watch the videos, do some Q&A, and get some hands-on. So the videos and the Q&A are covered with this professormesser.com/PQC. But of course, there's free stuff online. That's the reason I mentioned this. The free stuff online is available at professormesser.com/popquiz. I archive what we do in these study groups, and you can go and take these exams online. I've got hundreds of A+ questions online, absolutely free. Nothing you have to do, no registration. Just click on it, see how you go. So that's one of those nice things to have there. This is also available. This entire study group is available for you to watch on replay on my website. Every one of them is archived there. You can watch the videos. There's also podcast versions. If you like an audio version, you can listen to in your car while you're working out. This is a great thing to have. ProfessorMesser.com/podcasts. All of my study groups are out there. You're welcome to subscribe. The RSS feeds are there, or you can play them directly from that page. So a couple of different ways you can do that. Some nice ones to have there. So today, finally, we're going to do some Q&A. Here's how you do it. You go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA. Just pop open a new window. You can do this on your mobile device. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA, and you just stay right there. And I'm going to have questions right there on the screen. In fact, there's a question right there, right now on the screen. If you have downloaded the Socrative mobile app, that's what this is a service called Socrative. If you've downloaded their mobile app, it will ask you for a room number or a room name. The room name is Professor Messer, ProfessorMesser. And they've got a bunch of apps now available. I've got the Google Play and the Apple app there. There's Windows apps for Windows Mobile. There's a couple of people out there running Windows Mobile. There's apps for browsers. You can find plenty there. But it may just be easier to pop open a browser window and go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA. And if you do that, you'll see there's a question there from last month. This is our study group rewind to see if you're able to get into Socrative. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA, and you will see the question that says, you're in the process of purchasing new software for your department. When you provide your manager with the purchase information, she asks you for the EULA. Which of these would best describe the information your manager needs? Would it be A, licensing details, B, storage requirements, C, total cost, D, lead time, or E, internal software approval. And some of you will see this right there. And you can see that 93% of you have said A, licensing details. We may want to go with A on this one. This is one, looks like most of you remembered this from last month. That's also a benefit as well to have that there. Hopefully this is something. So hopefully you'll be able to see this. If you can't see the question, then something's not quite right at all. You need to go to professormesser.com/QA, or if you're on a mobile app, make sure you type Professor Messer correctly, PROFESSORMESSER. And for the folks in the chat room are wondering, do I look at the chat room? Yes, I do look at the chat room as we're going. Some of you know, I have everything here. Why would I not look at the chat room? Chat room's right here. I'm seeing the questions go by there in blue. So I am watching as we're doing this. Trust me. I can see everything you're doing. I may not be able to answer you immediately. That's the real challenge. There is that too. So make sure you go through and understand the details of that. Now, the important thing is we do these questions, go to professormesser.com/QA. Don't answer in the chat room, and please don't put any hints or anything in there. We're going to pretend we're seeing this for the first time, that we're going through and the normal process of having all those things there. Indeed, for those of you wondering, it was indeed the EULA is what we're dealing with. The EULA is the end user license agreement. That's exactly if you're bringing in any type of new software, your manager is going to want to see this. It's a legal agreement between you and the company who's selling you the software. It's pretty useful to be able to know exactly what's expected. There could be things in the EULA you perhaps don't agree with, and it's very common for the lawyers on both sides to go back and forth and haggle about the terms of the EULA, and so everybody gets paid properly. Everybody gets their money. All the lawyers are happy. You'll get your software, and it all works perfectly. So that's where that end user license agreement comes from. So that was a pretty good one. You could see 94% of you did get that one correct. It's single digits, 1% and 2% for all the others. So that one, I think you folks did pretty well on. You remembered that from last month. Well, let's do a question from this month. Now we got new questions. Now, one of the things that you may recall reading about the 220-901 and the 220-902 exams is that much of it is multiple choice. But the first handful of questions you're going to get on the exam will be anything but multiple choice. They might be fill in the blank. They might be a sorting from highest to lowest or lowest to highest. It might be a matching question where you match one thing to another. They may pop you on a command prompt and ask you to complete a command. They may give you a window screen and ask you to complete the window screen. There's a lot of different things that can happen. So here on the study group, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to give you a performance-based question right out of the gate. People all the time ask me about performance-based questions. You can go back a year or more at this point because I've been doing this first question as a performance-based question for well over a year at this point. So you can find at least one performance-based question on every study group. And here's the one for this month. This is, on your side, it's going to be more of a fill in the blank, but you'll be able to number these things in certain numbers. Here's the question. Are you ready? Well, I hope you are, because here we go. The question is, put these technologies in order from fastest to slowest. I guess we're referring to bandwidth or line rate or something along those lines, right? Put these technologies in order from fastest to slowest. And you can just put, if you think they're all in the right order, you can just put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 once I hit the button here so that you can do that. There we go. And that's the wrong one. I didn't even put the right question in. I wonder if I have this question. This is the question from last month, but just fill in the blank. You know what we're doing here. Just ignore that on the front end on the online piece at professormesser.com/QA. Here are the technologies. Number 1 is USB 3.0. Number 2 is IEEE 1394B. Number 3 is SATA Revision 3.0. Number 4 is 1000 base T, and number 5 is Thunderbolt V3. Now, if you think all of these are already in order from fastest to slowest, just put into the answer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know the question online says match the utility to the description, but that was I did not update my questions online from last month. I copy these things over, so that's a copy-paste problem. I'm copy pasta limited here. I have problems with the copy pasting. So I didn't update the question, but you know what we're talking about. And I see people are answering, so it seems to have worked out. It's how you work on a live show. You just go with it. We'll see how it works. While people are answering, putting these technologies in order from fastest to slowest, there's some conversations in the chat room about the Network Plus exam, because some of you have realized the new Network Plus 007 is out. It just came out at the beginning of March, so it's been out a month. Has not been out very long. There's not a lot of books and materials out relative to the 006. And quite honestly, there's not much changed. Networking doesn't change as fast as operating systems change. So you're not going to find a huge number of differences between the one and the other. So I would recommend taking the 006. If I had to choose right now myself, I would take the 006. But if you're someone who you can't do it, you have to take the new one for whatever reason, your mind doesn't allow you to take the older exam, you're going to find if you look at the exam objectives, not much different. There might be a 10% different on all of these. Yes, I will explain which will be found. I will give you the answer to the question. Folks in the chat room who are new here, like, do we know what the answer is going to be? Yes, I will give you the answer in just a moment and explain why, so that you can absolutely know what those are. No, we're just going to do questions. And that's it. Thanks for coming, everybody. See you later. We're done here. It's pretty important. If you think you know the answers, go to professormesser.com/live. You don't want to answer in the chat room. You want to answer online so that we all can see how we do. Which exam is easier, the 006, 007? I think they're both, from a difficulty perspective, I think they're pretty equal. I don't think there's any much difference. Like I said, it's not much difference between these exams for all of those. So that's how we work. Oh, see, you have to read the question as well. Well, a number of you have answered. Let's go through what we think these are, from fastest to slowest, and get there. Maybe that would be what it is to have that there. If you aren't in the room to see the questions, you typed in professormesser.com/QA. I suspect there's nothing. You don't have to put a room number in. So if you went to professormesser.com/QA and you're not there, something else is not quite right with you, because the room is absolutely there. Let's put these technologies in order from fastest to slowest. The fastest one on this list, very quickly, let's review for the people who are on the podcast what the list was. It was number 1 was USB 3.0. Number 2 is IEEE 1394B. Number 3 is SATA Revision 3.0. Number 4 is 1000 base T. Number 5, Thunderbolt V3. So now we can answer in the chat room, which one is the fastest? Let's choose the fastest one. Which one of these would you put at the top of the list for you? I'm allowing you to answer in the chat room at this point. Which one would go in the top of the list from all of those? And we think that it is, would it be Thunderbolt version 3? That is indeed the fastest on here. Number 5, Thunderbolt version 3. I see a number of you are answering number 5. You're absolutely right. 40 gigabits per second. You can get a lot of throughput through a Thunderbolt V3 connection. A pretty fast setup if you're running Thunderbolt version 3. Number 2 on the list, the second fastest, and again, you have to, people in the chat room mention this, you have to put it in order from fastest to slowest. Make sure you know exactly what that is to have that there. So make sure you have those there. Number 3, SATA Revision 3.0. Runs at 6 gigabit per second line rate. Pretty nice to have that there. Now we go to number 3. That was, by the way, that's number 5 is Thunderbolt 3.0. Number 3 is SATA Revision 3.0. Third on our list is going to be USB 3.0. USB 3.0 runs at 5 gigabits per second. USB 3.1, a little bit different. In fact, no, 3.1 could be a number of different things, but we're not talking about USB 3.1, and that's a different conversation altogether. But we're talking about USB 3.0, and the speed of USB 3.0 is 5 gigabits per second. Number 4 on our list, interestingly enough, is number 4 is 1000 base T at 1 gigabit per second. That leaves us with only one as the last, which is IEEE 1394B, which is FireWire, as we say here in the South. FireWire runs at 800 megabits per second. So that, oddly enough, slowest one's FireWire. Who knew? So we've got a good choice of things there to choose from, to select with. And that's our final list. First on our list is number 5, Thunderbolt version 3 at 40 gigabits per second. Number 2 is number 3, or second on our list is number 3, SATA Revision 3.0, 60 gigabits per second. Next would be number 1, USB 3.0 at 5 gigabits per second. Next would be number 4 at 1000 base T, which is Gig Ethernet, 1 gigabit per second. And number 2 is our final one on the list, IEEE 1394B for FireWire. If you're trying to get into the chat room, all the chat room information is at professormesser.com/live. The room name, Professor Messer, PROFESSOR, So hopefully you can find that and get that available. And a lot of you were able to answer that one. That was a fill in the blanks. There's not much to show on this side. So hopefully that would get you there. Now, on your exam, you're going to get a performance-based question, a number of performance-based questions first thing. One of the strategies I recommend, because this is how I do it, I skip over them. On the CompTIA exams, you can go to any question in the exam at any time. So not all certification exams are like that, but the CompTIA, at least right now, currently is. I don't think they'll ever change it, but right now you can go to any question at any time. So you can always backtrack, you can go forward, you can jump to the last question first. I jump over the performance-based questions because when I start the exam, I'm not thinking straight at that point. I just got in the room, I'm anxious, there's a lot of adrenaline running, I can't understand what I'm reading on the screen, I'm barely making it through at this point, I'm barely functional. Let's jump over the hard questions. Let me do some multiple choice. And what I find is the multiple choice makes me remember things. And then when I come back to the performance-based question, some of the things that I got on the multiple choice are now helping me with my performance-based. Now, some people are they don't like that. They like to do the performance-based first. That's fine. Do the strategy that works for you. But that's the way it works for me. Let's do a question that's more of a multiple choice, though. Let's hope that I'm able to get this going there. Oh, finally, the questions match. Folks are having a hard time with the mismatched questions on the online piece. So I'm finally back to doing things properly for you. I apologize for that. Now we got a question for you. This one says your Soho router includes an interface labeled DMZ. Which of these would best describe this interface? Multiple choice question for you. The options are A, used for internal communication only. B, encrypted tunnel endpoint for remote access. C, used to upgrade the operating system. D, local serial connection. Or E, unrestricted access from external devices. Your Soho router includes an interface labeled DMZ. If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and answer the question. Hopefully you'll be able to see that. Please don't answer in the chat room. You want to answer online at professormesser.com/QA. Your Soho router includes an interface labeled DMZ. Which would best describe this interface? It would be A, used for internal communication only. B, encrypted tunnel endpoint for remote access. C, used to upgrade the operating system. D, local serial connection. And E, unrestricted access from external devices. So hopefully that can help you as well. Remember, no answering in the chat room and no hints in the chat room, please. But that's okay. That only happens one time. It doesn't happen anymore for some reason. We're always able to make those things work. So a number of you are answering that one. I'm going to take a sneak peek at how we're doing on this one. I always try to get at least 50% of you getting these questions right. So that's my challenge. I don't want to make these too easy, and I want to make them questions that make you think about what these things are. Notice I'm not asking you for a definition of what these things mean. The exam's not going to ask you for definitions either. It's not going to say, what is a DMZ? And it gives you the acronym explanation. They're not going to do that. They're going to ask you a question like this that makes you think about how you would use that technology. How is that technology implemented? How do you take advantage of that technology? That's what you want to do. So hopefully that's one that you can go through and figure out, oh, okay, I know why I should go through and do that one. So, and that's your first question. So if you are asking what the DMZ is, you already are sort of behind the 8 ball. You have to know what these things are to be able to do that. Let's see how you did with this particular question. Your Soho router includes an interface labeled DMZ. Which of these would best describe this interface? How do we do? Well, 50% right on said E, unrestricted access from external devices. But is it really E? That's the real question. What is it really? because we had 28% of you, over a quarter of you said it's an encrypted tunnel endpoint for remote access. 16% of you said that it's used for internal communication only, and only 6% said local serial connection, and only 1% said used to upgrade the operating system. So which one would it really be? Which one could it possibly be? This is one of the challenges of figuring out these details. Let's talk about what a DMZ happens to be. That might help if we had some idea. Like we said in the chat room, where folks are going, I don't know what you're talking about, DMZ. One of the things you'll find when you start installing a device into a SOHO interface or a small office or maybe a home office, that's your SOHO, you have these devices that are these all-in-one devices. They are we call them wireless routers, but they're really much more than wireless routers, aren't they? They are really a firewall. They can probably do content filtering. They've got bandwidth control, quality of service on them. They're a switch. They're a router. They're performing NAT functionality. They're an access point. They've got all this capability just in this tiny little device. It's quite remarkable, really. Many of these devices have an interface on the back for you to connect to, usually numbered 1, 2, 3, or 4. There's a device in the back that usually says WAN, or internet. That's where you plug in your internet connection. There may be another interface labeled DMZ. That interface allows unrestricted access from the outside. So if you had a service, a storage drive, a server, something you wanted people to access where they wouldn't have to go through the firewall, the way you would do that is you connect it to the DMZ interface. That allows people access, but it makes that device wide open. The good part about this, though, is this DMZ, which stands for demilitarized zone, is very much like a legitimate demilitarized zone. It's a military term where it's this no man's land between two sides. So they're not on the inside of your network when they're accessing that service, but they're not completely on the internet either. So there's a couple of ways to have a look at that. That's the way you do that, by using those DMZ interfaces. That becomes pretty useful to have that functionality there. If you have a service, you don't want to go through configuring port forwarding or dealing with configurations inside the device, you just plug it into the DMZ. You kind of have to be careful there. Don't plug your device into the DMZ. That's not what you're trying to do either. But this is something that is going to give you somebody free access to this device from the outside, but still keep them from the inside of your network. And a DMZ, by the way, not something that's just used in a SOHO environment. For the largest enterprises in the world, their firewalls, it's very common for them to configure a DMZ on their firewalls as well. So let's see how we did with that one. Did I not hit the button? Are we not there? Are we not typing stuff? Oh, I hit the wrong button. See how that happens? Let's see how we go back to our list. Indeed, letter E was unrestricted access from external devices. 51% of you got that one absolutely right. It was indeed E. Would it be an encrypted tunnel endpoint for remote access? It would not. That's not what a DMZ is used for. Some of these SOHO devices do support VPN connectivity, but usually you're connecting to the external IP address associated with the wide area network on that device to complete that VPN tunnel. You're not connecting to a DMZ. That's not what the DMZ is for. So unfortunately, not the correct answer, the 26% of you. Used for internal communication only? Nope. The DMZ, again, is that middle ground. It's that no man's land in the middle. So it would not just be for internal. That's where people externally are coming to access those services. So it would not be A either. It is not a local serial connection. Usually these SOHO devices don't have a serial connection on them. They don't have that capability. But usually if there is an external serial connection used commonly for managing the device, it's a port, it's an interface you plug in separately, and it's not called a DMZ. And used to upgrade the operating system, nope, that's usually done over the wire. In band over the wires, they say. So you would connect your device and manually upload a file in there using the Ethernet connection. So that's not what a DMZ for is there either. So the question online, it's only unrestricted because it's SOHO. Enterprises place DMZs between multiple firewalls. Most places do not have multiple firewalls. Most places have one firewall. They're rarely, in fact, now, you're talking to somebody who was a systems engineer for a next-generation firewall company for about 7 years. So I implemented and designed enterprise firewalls throughout the East Coast of the United States and been in some of the largest data centers in the world. And interestingly enough, most places have a firewall. That's it. There might be redundancy. You might have one that takes over if that firewall fails, but there's only one firewall between the inside and the outside, and quite honestly, that's all you need. You don't need multiple firewalls, unless on the inside you're doing something else. Well, of course, there are certainly things on the inside who could do other things as well. But you don't need, most people don't implement multiple firewalls. Places that have implemented multiple firewalls, though, healthcare. When you get into healthcare and people worrying about HIPAA requirements and making sure that the information is secure, I've seen organizations put multiple firewalls right at the edge, pointing out the internet. I didn't necessarily agree that it helped anything, but they felt better about it. In fact, they used 2 different manufacturers' firewalls to do that. So you never know what you're going to see. Generally, the DMZ, though, is connected to that firewall. And you're right, generally, people do not have complete unrestricted access into the DMZ. They let in the access just what's needed, which is a very good idea on a firewall, that you only allow access. Don't open it up. You don't get full access through a firewall. Why do you have the firewall there as well? So that's one of those things that's very, very different how it's implemented in enterprise, but it's the same idea. It's a no man's land. It's now on the inside of the network. People get access to it from the outside to access those resources. And out again, the only reason it's unrestricted on these smaller SOHO devices is the SOHO companies just don't think the people setting these up are going to have the knowledge needed to be able to narrow down the scope of it. So I think we've talked enough about that. Let's do another question, shall we? That's why we're here. I think that we can talk all about firewalls in the after show if you'd like to. I'll be glad to tell you all about the stories of putting firewalls in and what you'd find and the craziness that goes on there. There's plenty of stories there, I assure you. Let's do another question. Here's one. If you want to answer this question, go to professormesser.com/QA. Please do not answer in the chat room. You want to answer online, because the question is, you would like to change your Windows 7 computer to hibernate when the power button is pressed instead of shutting down. Which of these would be the best way to make this change? Would you, A, update the BIOS power settings? Would you, B, change the settings in msconfig? Would you, C, install a third-party hibernate utility? Would you, D, modify the power options in the control panel? Or E, change the power supply settings? Couldn't see that on my screen. E is change power supply settings. So the answer to the question again, you would like to change your Windows computer to hibernate when the power button is pressed instead of shutting down. Good idea. Which of these would be the best way to make these change? Would it be A, update the BIOS power settings? B, change the settings in msconfig? Would it be C, install a third-party hibernate utility? Would it be D, modify the power options in the control panel? Or would it be E, change the power supply settings? One of those is going to be what you want. And if you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. Maybe some of you have done this before. Something you can go through. That's one of those things that I think is important to know if you ever work through these problems. That's one that you're going to be asked. Maybe you might be asked in the exam to do that. That'd be a good one to put at a command, put you at a Windows screen and say, go do this. How would you do it? They just put you to desktop. They say, make it happen. Oh, okay, well, I need to do this. So this is one of those very good questions you could turn into a performance-based question if you think of this. Certainly wouldn't be one of those things to do. While we're waiting, a number of you have already answered, but while we're waiting, somebody in the chat room saying, am I done with 006 classes, referring to, I guess, Network Plus. We have a Network Plus study group every month. We probably are answering or asking 007 questions these days, but quite honestly, there's not much difference between the 006 and the 007. Plus, you've got 3 years of study groups. You can go back and look at replays for the 006. So that's not the last one we did. Was mostly 006 questions. There were some 007s in there too, but there's such an overlap. There's such a dramatic overlap between the 006 and 007 that you're gonna see a mix of those. There's not much difference between those. And I think it's appropriate. Someone in the chat room going, why are you talking about Network Plus? Is this A+? Yes, it is. This is A+. Let's see how we did with this one. And then I'll come back to the question you're asking about performance-based questions and how they grade them, which is a pretty darn good question. Let's see how we did. You want to change your Windows 7 computer to hibernate with the power buttons pressed instead of shutting down. How do you do that? 85% of you must have done this before because you said modify the power options in the control panel. 6% said update the BIOS. A tie for third at 4% saying change the settings in MS config and change the power supply settings. And only 1% said install a third power hibernate utility. So that's one of those that that may be an option. So this is one that could come in handy for you. And it is indeed in the control panel under the power options. This is where you can really customize all the power settings for your computer. Some computers have more power settings than others. It's very common for laptops to have many more power settings than a desktop computer, for example. For instance, you could tell it when you're going to stand by. You know, if you close the lid on your laptop, what happens? You know, that's one of those options. If you open it up, what happens? Does it shut down? Does it hibernate? What does it do? So that's one of those that, and in the chat room, somebody did say Windows 7 hibernate's very unreliable. You should just take hibernate out of that question, and you'd be fine. Dealing with reliability, you just never know what's going to happen. Some machines, some operating systems, in fact, Windows 7 does a pretty good job until there's some other device driver that just doesn't like to hibernate. And it messes up everything. And it's usually some third-party device driver that's messing it up. Windows itself actually hibernates pretty darn well. I used to use it all the time when I did Windows. But I don't do much Windows on my working machine anymore to have that there. So it's a pretty good idea to be able to use those. And I quite honestly don't think it makes any difference at all whether you're using an SSD or not. It makes no difference at all, really. It's a perfectly fine option. It's all about saving battery. It doesn't have anything to do with storage or anything else. So power options are there for you to take advantage of. So indeed, it would be D, modify the power options in the control panel. 85% of you said that one, and you'd be absolutely right. The BIOS does not really allow you much change to how the power button affects the operating system. The BIOS and the operating system don't know a lot about each other, and they don't affect a lot about each other. There's a little bit of things they do affect between each other, but what happens there for that power button is not one of those. Changing the settings in MS config, don't think that settings in MS config. So you're not going to find that there. There's a lot of great settings in MS config. I love the MS config, don't get me wrong, but I don't think you're going to find this setting in there. You've got 3% to change the power supply settings. There's really only one power supply setting you would change, and that's if you have a different incoming voltage, a different input voltage, which probably is not going to happen to you unless you move to a different country with your computer. So that's probably not something you do either, and it certainly has nothing to do with the power button. And installing a third-party hibernate utility, I don't even know if there are any third-party hibernate utilities. There probably are, but that's not how you do it. Why would you install something third-party if you can do it in the operating system itself? It's right there. It's easy to do, and you set it up in the control panel under the power option. So indeed, D, 86% of you got it absolutely right. Not fooling anybody with that one and what's there. You may be aware on this exam, there is so much information. The 22901 itself is full of information. The 22902, tons of information. That's there. I have taken every bit of important information from every single one of my 901 and 902 videos, and I put them into a set of course notes. I, of course, always recommend that you take your own notes, but sometimes you just don't have time to go through every video. There's a lot of graphics in my videos that might be difficult to take a note on. There's so many pictures that can help you with recognizing what these things are, because the recognition of these things is an important part of the exam objectives. So I have a set of PDF study groups, or PDF course notes. This is the study group. The course notes that can show you what you need to do. It's all in a PDF form. You can buy it right now and download it. It's available for you at professormesser.com/A+CN to have that there. And Mrs. Professor Messer said I should make a physical version as well. So if you want to pay a little bit extra, because it does cost a bit to print these up, but I will ship one out to you. And if you do buy the physical version, it's kind of hard to see with the glare on the screen there, but if you do buy the physical version, then you get the digital version for free along with it immediately. So you don't have to wait for that to be delivered. And it's got everything in there. It's got everything you want from a perspective of studying. There's good stuff in there. Hardware, networking, laptops, printers, operating systems, upgrade policies, security information, troubleshooting tips, they're in there. So it's a very good idea. I've had these available, yes, for the A+ exam, the Network Plus, both the 006 and the 007. Make sure you get the one that you're studying for, and the Security Plus. I've got a IC&D1, CCNT Cisco course notes. I've got even Microsoft version 7 from an old course. I think that one's actually retiring soon. So that's a good one to have there. Hopefully it's something that might help you. So have a look at that. Find out more information about that at professormesser.com/A+CN. If you're on the professormesser.com/live page, there's a link there too. I just bug you until you buy it, I guess. One thing about this, by the way, people sometimes will say, I like your free videos. I'd like to contribute to the site. I don't take any type of donation. I want you to get something for your money. So this is a way that hopefully I can give you something that's a high quality study material for, in exchange, you providing support for the site, because every dollar that you put into this goes into allowing me to create more content. So this is the way the site continues to live and breathe. So thank you everyone who has purchased these before. Your support of the site is very much appreciated. And I could not do this without you. Seriously, this goes a long way. So thank you so much. Let's do some more Q&A. That's what we're here for. Here's a question. You need to troubleshoot an internet connection issue. Go figure. From one of your Linux servers. I just did this. Wonder how this question came about. Which of these would be the best way to determine the IP address configuration of your Linux device? So you need to troubleshoot internet connection from Linux. That's right. The 902 exam requires you know macOS and Linux along with Windows. So the question is, which of these would be the best way to determine the IP address configuration of your Linux device? Would it be A, ifconfig, B, ethgit, C, dig, D, arp, or E, netstat? Those are all real Linux things. Most of them are all real Linux things. Okay, there's a couple, okay, almost all of these are real Linux things. So hopefully that's one you'll find too. So hopefully you've been working with some Linux and have this here. We're going to take care of a few problems I've been thinking of in my website, Linux right now. There's plenty of Linux to consider. In fact, if you're on professormesser.com right now, you're on Linux. So I do a tons of Linux on the Professor Messer website. If those of you on the chat room are interested in those course notes, you can go to the top of the Professor Messer website. There are pull-down menus there for A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, all those courses, and in that list are the get the course notes. That's where you would get those course notes. Also available from the front page menu on professormesser.com. So one of those that would be there as well. Hopefully this will be something that you can go through and figure out. In fact, if you have the course notes, you could use them right now, but I hope you don't. I hope you go through and try to figure out. I can't see if I can fit the whole question on here with all the answers. My big head's in the way. Here's the question. You need to troubleshoot an internet connection issue from one of your Linux servers. How the heck do you do that? I think some of you might know. Some of you might have some of these that you've used before. Have that there. Question in the chat room that I want to go back to quickly. How do you know you're ready to take this exam? I'm going to tell you at the end, and I'll tell you right now, get the exam objectives. If you don't have the A+ exam objectives, you're doing yourself a disservice. Should be the first thing you download from the CompTIA website. It tells you everything you need to know. Absolutely. And should you get a book for A+? Yes, you should get a good book. You should watch videos. You should do Q&A, and you should do hands-on. There's 4 things. You should do all 4 of those things to have the best chance at passing the A+ exam. It's because a book teaches you differently than videos teach you. Q&A teaches you differently than the book or the videos. So it's a completely different learning experience. Make sure you know it. Let's see how we did with this one. I do have a book I recommend. If you go to the A+ pull-down menu on my website, there's a recommended study resources there. And there's a great book from GTS Learning that I used to create these videos. So that's what I recommend as well. It's a book that gets right to it. Tells you exactly what you need. So here you go. This is the question. You need to troubleshoot an internet connection issue from one of your Linux servers. Which of these would be the best way to determine the IP address configuration of your Linux device? 77% said ifconfig. Sounds like IP config, but it's ifconfig. So is that right? We don't know yet. Let's find out. 16% of you said netstat. Okay, that's a good chunk of you said netstat. 5% said ethgit. 1% said dig. 1% said arp. Now, I'll tell you that in this question, you could use a number of these commands to determine the IP address of your Linux device. Perhaps not the entire IP address configuration, but the question asked you for the best way. And you're going to see this on the exam that there may be in the answers, well, I could do it using 2 or 3 of these answers. But the question didn't ask you which one of these could you use. It asked you the best way. And this question was very specific in asking for IP address configuration information. And those of you familiar with gathering IP address configuration, because it's usually the first thing you do when you're troubleshooting. You sit down at a box, you're troubleshooting the network. One of the first things you need to know is what's the IP address, subnet mask, and default gateway of this device. What DNS is it using? On Windows, you use ipconfig, and in Linux, you use ifconfig. So that's where that comes from. A little bit different. In fact, I find myself switching back and forth all the time throughout the day, and I'll type in ifconfig where I really was supposed to put in ipconfig. So you got to remember where you are. Oh, I'm on Windows, ipconfig. Oh, I'm in Linux. I'm on macOS. The command prompt, I need to do an ifconfig. So one of those. You've got a couple of options there to have that there, but that is the correct answer. So the 77, there's the answers. There they are. Be nice if I showed it to you. So there's the ipconfig for Windows and ifconfig for Linux. That's what you want to do. This comes directly from my 229.01 4.4 video network troubleshooting at the command line, if you want to go reference that later. So that's where that answer is. So if you did answer A, ifconfig, 77% got that absolutely right. 17% of you said netstat. Netstat can give you certainly network information about your adapter. It's really designed to show you interactions with the rest of the world, and it doesn't show you all of the different IP configuration options in Linux. So it's not really the best choice for determining the IP address configuration. It's not going to show you it might show you, actually you could make it show you things like subnet mask. I don't think it will show you the default gateway in Linux. But it will, if you type in a bunch of different things in netstat, depending on your Linux version, you could kind of get this stuff out of it. You may have to type it in a couple of times. Not the best option for doing this, which is why the best way is a ifconfig. 5% said ethgit. I just made that one up. That's not a real thing. That's apt-get, though, is. Apt-get is what you would use to perform software updates on certain Linux distributions. A dig is the way to look and query DNS servers, but it doesn't show you all the IP address configuration details of your local machine. And ARP really shows you what's in the ARP cache. You can do other things with ARP as well, add and remove things from the cache. But ARP is not how you would determine any IP address configuration information either, and only 1% of you chose that after all. So the answer, ipconfig A, is the correct answer. Since we're on this mode of other operating systems, let's do a question that talks about another operating system. So here we go. The question is, you need to recover an older version of a spreadsheet on your macOS workstation. Which of the following would be the best choice to restore this file? Would it be A, backup and restore, B, disk utility, C, image recovery, D, time machine, or E, file restore? You need to recover an older version of a spreadsheet on your macOS workstation. It's got to be one of these, right? Which of the following would be the best choice to restore this file? If you think you know the answer, don't mention it in the chat room. You want to go to professormesser.com/QA and put that in there. Folks in the chat room are going, what? There's Mac and Linux. Why are you talking about Mac and Linux? Because it's on the exam. Absolutely on the 902 exam. So make sure that if you've not grabbed, again, the exam objectives, you're severely limiting yourself by not having those exam objectives. The ARP is Address Resolution Protocol. That's what the ARP is. The ARP, like it's a thing. You know, the ARP, the Address Resolution Protocol, where it comes from. Hopefully that can be something you can work through as well. It's one of those where you go through and you know exactly what those different options are. Let's clean up a few things there. This is one where if you're ever trying to work on macOS and you do need to know for the exam more than just the exam, you need to go through and know how to use the macOS operating system, at least with these very broad utilities that are listed. There's a handful of utilities you need to know in macOS. I don't think it's entirely necessary that you have used macOS, but there's that hands-on component. If you have access to a macOS 10 device, it would be really useful to get some stick time on that one, because you're going to may need to fly that one around a bit on the exam. Let's see how we did with this one. How do we do? Let's find out. Oh, well, 59% said time machine, but very strong 25% said file restore. And then single digits for backup and restore, image recovery, and disk utility. So, but 59% said time machine. It's about the 50% I was shooting for, but is that really the right answer? It's kind of a weird name, time machine. Well, of course you'd use a time machine. How else would you go back in time? Isn't that how you do? Isn't that how that works? Have that there? Of course it would be. I'll talk about VMs and Mac in just a moment because it's a good question. Let's, and the answer on this one is indeed time machine. Leave it to the folks at Apple to have this cheeky name. Of course, the way you go back in time is time machine. This is the backup, the built-in backup facility in the Mac OS X operating system. It's called time machine. And you would set up an external drive, one that's connected via USB or something that's on the network, and you say, just back everything up to time machine. And that's what I do on my computers. So I have a big network attached storage that's in the other room, and I tell all my Mac OS devices, just go there and back up your systems there. It can perform an entire restore from scratch. It can restore individual files. It puts us in this really neat view, and you can go back and forth through time and find different versions of the file. It's a nice little utility. Very nice to have that there. So it's a useful utility as well, but that's what they call their backup. Not like Windows, which calls the Windows backup and restore. It's very, very straightforward. It's very Microsoft, isn't it? What does this utility do? It backs it up and then restores it. That's it. Of course, it's called backup and restore. Disk utility is a Mac OS utility, but it's for doing disk level processes, for doing partitioning, that type of thing. It's not something you would use for backup and restore. Image recovery, kind of made that one up. Doesn't really exist in Mac OS. Time machine is the right answer. File restore, another one I sort of made up. Doesn't really exist either to have that there. Now, if you're watching this study group for CEU credits, which you would only need if you already have your A+ certification and you're collecting CEUs to do this. So not everybody needs this, but some people, and you might be using this for other things as well. You want to go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. Make sure you follow this instructions, or I'm not going to give you the CEU. This is part of earning the CEU, is going through the task of getting it. So at the top or the bottom of the study group is the top of the bottom of the website is a contact us link. It's really contact me. It sends me information. And if you are there and you are, you'll get a little form. Make sure you put in your name and your email address. You can do this whether you're watching live or on a replay, by the way. And there's a field there. You just put something in to send a message to me. You can put anything in there because I'll be reading through all of these. But the thing you want to put in absolutely on this list is time machine. Yeah, we'll do time machine. Makes it easy. So put that in the list and then send that to me, and I'll know you must have seen it. So hopefully it's there. Hopefully that will be one you can use. That will give you 1 hour of continuing education unit credit for A+. You can only collect like 4 of these for A+ in a 3-year period. So you just can't watch all my study groups and earn everything you need to be able to do this. So make sure you're completely aware you only need 4. I can give you more, but you can't do anything with them. So yeah, Network Plus is 6, Security Plus is 10. Changes depending on what certification you have. So it's one of those. But you also have to earn more CEUs for those. So it's all about that. You can only do it every 3 years for that piece too. So hopefully that's worked as well. Again, the answer on this one is D, time machine, to have that there. One of the things I always tell you is you need to get a good book. You need to watch some videos, do some Q&A, and get some hands-on. One of the challenges with the A+ exam is there's a lot of different operating systems you need hands-on with. And this is the thing you have to deal with whenever you're looking at what am I going to do for figuring out all by getting hands-on, because you're going to need, right from the exam objectives, you're going to need Vista, you're going to need 7, you're going to need 8 and 8.1. So one of the things you can do is to use a cloud-based service that already has these labs set up. And GTS Learning already has something available at professormesser.com/live labs. So in fact, I'm on the live labs right now. I just started one that says Understand TCP/IP Services Part 3. This one does administering Kali Linux, verifying port 80 for HTTP, verifying HTTPS port 443, verifying port 139 for NetBIOS, and contrasting TCP and UDP protocols. There's a little network that's already set up. That's great. So let's run this one. I'm going to go next. And it's going to bring me to a list of all of these servers, and I'm just going to power them on. Power up, power up. So they're out in the cloud. These are real servers. These aren't simulations of servers. These are truly emulated devices. These are not even emulated devices. These are virtual devices. You don't even have to follow the exact path of the entire lab. They do have screenshots and a full explanation of how to go through all of these. But you could see as they're powering up, there's my Windows 7 device powering up, and it's all in a browser. So it's so easy to use. I didn't have to load any extra software. I could go to the Linux box. The Linux box I don't think I accessed from the console. I think I SSH into the Linux box from this particular one. There's another Windows device setting up. Is this a server device starting up? Kali Linux. So I'm on the Linux box directly. I don't have to do that. So you ever want to run Kali, you're right there, setting it up, logging in. There it is. Very nice. And it's pretty darn quick. I don't know. I'm in here. Let's do the Windows machine. I'll go to the Windows box, give you a feel for this. Let's go to File Manager. Let's click Documents. Well, it's no documents in here. That doesn't help. Pictures. Let's do sample pictures. There they are. Let's look at the desert. That's pretty quick. That's not bad. For all a remote desktop type connection, I don't have to load any software or do anything on here. That's pretty nice. You can learn all about this, professormesser.com/live labs. It's a nice setup. I use it often just to pull up, run through a couple of things, shut it down. I can do it instantly to have this here. And they got a pretty good price on it too. You can just get the A+ book from GTS Learning for $35, but they bundle in the labs and the book with 400 practice questions, $109. So it's a nice deal. And you only get this special price, by the way, if you follow this link. So you can't go to the GTS Learning website directly and get that. You have to know the super secret Professor Messer link at professormesser.com/live labs. And that's how that works there. We got time for another question. Let's do another one. I've got one here. By the way, I want to thank the folks at GTS Learning for their support. I think one of the things that very useful to have that functionality there. They've had a lot of great study materials. I love using their book to do the videos with also, by the way, because it makes things so much easier just to go through there and have that available. Here's the next question for you. Here we go. Boom. What would most commonly be associated with this connector? I didn't put the picture online, but you can see it on the screen here. So the folks listening on the podcast, this particular question, more of a visual daily double. You're not going to be able to see this one here. Doesn't help on the audio side. So hopefully you're listening on the podcast, you're trying to figure out the details, and now I'm giving a picture on the screen, and you've got to figure out how would I describe all of these things that I have here. If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. You, of course, would be able to answer this question online. Well, we're getting a few things done today. We're getting a lot done online today. So easy when folks make it easy for me. And I want to thank everybody for making it easy for me to get some of these things done. I have a better picture of this. If you think this one's not working out so well, here's the better picture of this. This is a multiple choice question too. The possible answers are, is it A, an external storage device? Is it what would most commonly be associated with this connector? A, an external storage device. B, digital audio output. C, high definition video output device. D, SAN connectivity. Or E, a long distance network connection. Which one of these would be most commonly associated with this connector. Here it is again. There's the connector. So would it be, as you're looking at it, I'll give you the answers. Of course, it's in front of you. A, an external storage device. B, digital audio output. C, a high-definition video output device. D, SAN connectivity. Or E, long-distance network connection. One of the things you have to know on the exam is you have to be able to recognize interfaces and ports by sight. A lot of people get all wrapped up in trying to memorize number of pins that are in memory. And the exam's not necessarily asking you for a number of pins. It's asking you to recognize these devices. And the only way I know how to tell you what this device looks like is here's how big it is. Here's how many pins it has. Here's how you would use it. So that's the thing you should focus on is not necessarily, oh, it's the red thing. Here's how many pins it has. But you want to see how it looks and you want to know how to use it. Those are the most important things with that, having those there. Let's see, a number of you have already answered this one. I think a number of you are doing reverse image lookups right now. I think that's what you're doing with this. It is kind of a weird looking plug, isn't it? What the heck's going on there? But you may have worked with one of these before, and if you have, it's probably very straightforward. Let's see how we did with this connector. How did we do? And if we click the answer on how we did, 70% said B, digital audio output. Tie for second place, 11% said high definition video output device, and 11% said long distance network connection. 7% said SAN connectivity, and 1% said an external storage device. So, which one of these would it be? Well, if you've been working with one of these before, you probably have seen these audio ports here, the Toslink. This is a optic fiber digital audio connection. So it's one where you can plug this into your device, plug it into your amplifier, and now you've got a way to send this information digitally there. So very easy to have that functionality. And of course, it's going to give you a nice, clean audio signal because it's sending that information through light, usually just an LED light to have that there. So it is, it's nice to have that there, but it is for audio. It's kind of similar to some of the networking fiber connections, but it's a little bit different. You really wouldn't find a network fiber connection that looked like that. That doesn't even come close to what some of those might be to have those there. So Toslink would be a good way to have that available. And that's one makes it easy to have that there. And it's a good one to use if you're using anything that is on the optical audio side. If you've got a home audio system, you've probably got one of these interfaces there. By the way, all of these questions that we're doing in here, because a lot of people say, what the heck are you talking about? They're all directly from the exam objectives. I stick very close to the exam objectives. I go exactly, in fact, to the exam objectives. As I'm creating my videos, I'm crossing off the exam objectives. I don't go beyond the exam objectives. I could. Every video I make could be an hour long, but you don't want to go through 100 hours of A+. You just want to know what's on the exam. But you should learn as much as you can about all of these technologies. And all the connectors, people are saying, how do I learn all these connectors? I made a video that's got every connector you need to know for the exam. I've got every copper connector you need to know for the exam, every fiber connector you need to know for the exam, every video connector you need to know for the exam, every audio connector you need to know for the exam. And I stay right there. So some people think that's limiting, but we're trying to do a video course that will give you everything you need to know to pass. Should you learn more than this? Of course you should, and you will. But my goal is not to give you an overall education of the technology, but to instead give you exactly what you need to pass this exam. Hopefully this is how you would do that. Is absolutely go get those exam objectives. By the way, you can go to professormester.com/objectives and it will redirect you. You can go to the Google machine and type CompTIA exam objectives. That's there. That can help you as well. That's absolutely available for you as well. So take advantage of that. Gosh, we've been through an hour of this already. That doesn't seem fair. But don't worry, there's another one of these coming. And it's next month, May the 2nd. Is it really? You have to watch my calendar. Some things are going to change up during the summer period. So like the next couple of months, next 3 or 4 months. There may be changes to the study group. Normally, they're done the first Wednesday of the month. That's not always going to be the case. It will not be the case for June, for example. So make sure you know when this is happening. One way to know is to go to professormesser.com/calendar. And that's one way to have that happen. You're really the best way. And of course, on the sidebar of my site is also the calendar. It's on every page. Scroll down a little bit. It's right there. I promise. Yeah, we did an hour already. I can't believe it. Of course, we have a Q&A every day, an A+ pop quiz question available online. One of the best ways to get it's on Twitter, professormesser.com/Twitter. Don't forget to smash a button or do whatever they say you're supposed to do. When you go to professormesser.com/YouTube and subscribe, actually, it does go quite far. When you do that, we're way up past 200,000 subscribers at this point. Over 60 million views. We could not do this without you. Thank you so much for your ongoing support. It really does mean a lot. Don't forget about the course notes are available. It's a great way to help the website, professormesser.com/A+CN. My pop quiz collection at professormesser.com/PQC. My thanks again to GTS Learning for professormesser.com/live labs. So one good way to do that there. And of course, go back to the calendar. Stick around for the next hour. It's not really over until it's really over. And I'm, of course, going to open up the phone lines. There are a number of great questions that came up about macOS virtualization and other great questions about how I learn these things. We'll talk about it in the after show. And it's open phone lines. So you can talk about whatever you'd like. We don't just have to talk about A+. There's a lot of stuff going on in my world. We can talk about that too. And it's all available in the next hour. Stick around. Thanks for being here for the Q&A. We'll do the after show in a moment. If you have to leave, I can understand that too. I'm so glad you were able to make it, though. We will see you next time on the A+ Study Group. There's no music. There's no outro. There's no intro. It's just I go away, I come back, here I am. Thank you, Germany, for that. Thank you so much. Let's get the phone lines up and running. And we'll talk about some of this other stuff that's there. Let me host a show. Now I have to call in. I got to get Skypey going. Let's get that going. I know it's not Skypey. It's sort of an inside joke. It's a very inside joke for the Skypey part. And I hit a button. Don't do that. This is always the fun part because there's nobody here. It's just me doing this. So, I really should get somebody who can just take care of this for me. Maybe I'll work on that. It's going to ask some things of me. Welcome to a thing with the stuff. And yes, I got it. Okay. And then I press a thing. I got it. And I'm going to press this thing. I'll turn that off. So it doesn't, somebody's not able to decode all of that later on. And it says,
digit PIN number.
Oh, good. I put in another thing. This is the compelling part of the presentation. And it says,
Post.
Oh, it worked. It worked. How about that? And they said it couldn't be done. If you'd like to call in, you're more than welcome to. And you would call in toll free in the continental United States at 855-785-RJ45. You can also call in from Skype absolutely free. No Skype minutes required. It's a toll-free number. I paid the bill on this one. Put a +1 at the beginning. +1 855-785-7545. And that will get you there. So quickly, question. People asking if I have any plan for CySA Plus, which is that the cybersecurity certification from CompTIA. No plans at the moment because the CySA just hasn't got not enough people asking for it yet. If I can go out to dice.com and type in CSA or CySA and get at least one person wanting an individual with that certification, that would be great. I went out there about a month ago and nobody was looking for that certification. So I need to spend my time making things that will help the most number of people. So currently CySA Plus, as interesting as that content is, as in my wheelhouse as a former security systems engineer, I know that stuff. I wrote a book on Nmap. I got the content, but I can't. It's still a little bit early for that particular certification, but I'm still watching it. If something changes, I'll jump right in there. I promise you. One of the questions was about getting hands-on time on macOS. It's kind of hard because Apple doesn't allow you to virtualize macOS unless you're on macOS, unless you're on Apple hardware. The end-user license agreement limits what you're able to do with that. That doesn't mean people haven't virtualized it on other systems, but it violates the end-user license agreement, and so I'm not going to recommend that you do anything like that. There are cloud-based services that give you online time, very similar to what we saw with the Live Labs. There are online cloud-based macOS front ends. It's not a lab. They just kind of give you the desktop and off you go. But I think the minimum I saw, the one I was looking at, that was at least in a reasonable time frame, you could pay by the hour, and you had to buy a minimum of 30 hours. So there's a $30 investment you had to make there, which that's a plus or minus for you. You're gonna have to figure that piece out. I put in my videos descriptions and how these things look. I think it might be useful in the next round of these to build out, here's what the desktop looks like, here's a live Mac OS, and that type of thing. So there are some things there you can do with Mac OS, and I really should show more of it so that you wouldn't have to. You could watch me using it, although I'll bet there's some YouTube videos out there by somebody who just shows you the Mac OS front end and shows you the differences. And if there isn't, I should, because that would be a great opportunity to have that there. There are phone lines open, and we have a caller, and this person's been very patient. He or she. I don't know who's on the phone. We're about to find out. There is no screener. I am your screener as well. So let me make sure I am potted up, that I have the potentiometer moved up there on the Linux side. And let's go to phone calls to the 607 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Where are you calling from? Oh, see, I hear me. Now they're going to say, oh, that's me. I picked up the phone. And now they have to say something. Caller, are you there? Are you there, caller? Caller. Say something.
Hello?
Hey, there he is. Hey.
Hello?
What's your name? Where are you calling from? Yeah, you're going to need to listen into the phone and not listen into the stream. You can see it's delayed just a bit. Well, thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Hi, I had some questions actually about reading a CompTIA book.
CompTIA book. So what's your question?
So I'm actually working on CompTIA 901. And should I read a book? I actually text that in the chat room, but I didn't get that. So I thought that if I read a book, then it will take a long time to do the exam, like both exams. So should I just watch good videos and do your notes? Go that way?
It's a good question, and it comes up quite a bit as to what should I really invest in a book and go down that road. I think that getting a book is one of the most important things you can do for learning this material. I always mention you should do 4 things. One is get a good book. Another is watch the videos. Doesn't have to be mine, but it can be somebody else's. Another is to do some Q&A. I've got free Q&A, and a lot of people offer questions and answers. And the 4th is to get as much hands-on as possible. Those are the 4 things. If you did all 4 of those, would give you the best advantage for passing the exam. But as you mentioned, books can take a long time to go through. But the reason they take a long time to go through is you can put a lot more information into written form than you ever could in a video form. You'll notice after going through my video course that I hit every topic, but if you read a book, you're getting a little more info in a book because you can fit more information in the book in a written form much better than in something that is visual. But you learn in different ways, and getting a visual feedback of, oh, that's what the connector looks like, and we can look at different angles, and we can show you at the command line and let me step through the commands, and you're watching me demonstrate it on the screen, is different than reading it in a book. So it's kind of a trade-off. You really do need both. There have been people that have gone through my course and have told me, I just watched your videos and I went and I took the exam and I passed. But these are people that usually have experience in the industry. They've done this before. They know about the motherboard. They already understand the operating systems, and they really just needed something that was a referral. So it's one of those where I always recommend you get a book. I think it will really help you on the exam, and it makes a nice reference guide after you have your certification and you're trying to figure out, how did Windows do that again with the partitioning? Oh, I've got it in this document right here. This book will tell me exactly how that works. So that may be something you can use after the exam as well. Hopefully that would get you going right. Does that make much sense?
Yes, that definitely made more sense. I had actually a lot of questions for you. But can I ask you those questions now, or just chat? Do chat next time?
Let's do one more. We've got people holding, so let's do one more question, and you can always put things into the chat room. And for anybody who's listening throughout the week, throughout the month, if you ever have questions about anything, you can always hit the Contact Us link at the top of the website. I try to get back to everybody. That may be a good way to do it as well. But hit me with another question. Hit the most important one we want to hit.
Okay, so I'm going to do the practice exams after finishing the 901 part, and I'm trying to find like the most helpful link or maybe more reliable link to do the practice exams for 901 and 902. So may I know how to find that?
Finding good questions is always a challenge. It's hard to find good questions because questions are hard to write. And as I'm speaking as someone who writes 5 questions a week for A+, another one for Network Plus, and I've written 2 books that are nothing but questions, over 1,300 questions in both of those books. So it's hard to find good questions because it's hard to write good questions. I would stick with the names that you know. I, of course, have A+ question and answer books, my pop quiz collections, but you can always find the big names usually have good Q&A books. I mentioned earlier that GTS Learning has great Q&A, and it comes with their book. They've got other books have questions in them. And then, of course, there are big companies out there that really focus on providing good questions. And all they do is Q&A. That's another one to look at. What you want to watch out for are places that say that they're giving you exact questions from the exam. Very often they are not any more exact questions from the exam. Plus, it would be a violation of the candidate agreement to use effectively stolen questions from the exam. So you have to be careful which ones you're getting as well. So that's what I would recommend doing. And I've got plenty on my website to look at as well. At ProfessorMesser.com/popquiz are hundreds of A+ questions you could go through.
Okay. So actually last Saturday I sent you a bunch of questions. I went to your website and I went to contact link, and then that way I sent you some questions, but I haven't received the answer of those questions yet.
I may not have gotten down to that email yet, but send me a reminder, ping me again through the Contact Us link so that I can sync up your name. I can search for it quickly, and I'll be able to get back to you today with whatever you might be looking for.
Okay. And the last thing is that you were talking about to separate like 901 part and 902 part. So may I know when that will be available, the live things?
Which part specifically?
The CompTIA A+ 901 and 902.
You mean the exams, or are you referring to something else?
No, live video.
Oh, well, you can of course go to my website. I've got all of my videos available for the 901 and the 902 exam, and I've got replays of all study groups going back 3 years that cover the 901 and 902, and those might be a good reference as well.
Oh, actually, I'm sorry, but in the last video that I saw, that you were talking about doing Q&A for only 901 and doing Q&A for only 902. So are you going to separate that like live videos?
Oh, from the live stream. Yeah, I've still been considering that. It takes it takes about half a day to set all of these questions up and get everything going. And even then, I'm not typing things in properly, as we saw today. It takes quite a bit of time and investment for every single one of these. So currently, I think until at least I get my Network Plus videos done this month, things aren't going to change. But during the summer, I am considering breaking some of those things out. This one is getting, they're getting popular enough that I think we could get enough people for both of them. So that's still in consideration, but I am kind of leaning more towards separating them out. But keep watching. Hopefully, I'll be able to make an announcement about that soon.
Okay, and the last question about getting a job after CompTIA A plus certification. So I saw some jobs. Some companies require CompTIA A plus, and some companies prefer that. So how do I get a job after getting the CompTIA A plus? I mean, should I just keep going, do the networking plus and then security plus, or just get the CompTIA A plus and then get a job? How do I get a job after getting the A plus?
This is a common question. There's no single answer to this one either. Some employers love for you to be certified. Some don't care. Some employers want you to have certain types of certifications. Others want a different set of certifications. You never know exactly what you're going to run into. And that's why you need a combination of things. You need, if at all possible, a formal education so you can show somebody a degree that you have earned that took 2 or 4 years. You need hopefully some experience of some kind, whether it's something where you were paid or not paid. It'd be nice to have some certifications in your pocket so you can show somebody that you both have an interest and a knowledge in the types of things they're hiring for. And then lastly, it's good to know people. And that's maybe one of the most important ones is the people networking that you do. And I tell people all the time, if you have a Microsoft user group in your area, you should go to that user group and meet those people and attend every month and get to know them, because everyone in that room is hiring people at some point. And if you already have them in your LinkedIn and you know exactly who the people are in your area that are hiring, it may help you there as well. So it's never any one thing. A lot of people think, oh, I'll just get an A+ certification and now I'm hireable. Someone would hire me. Not necessarily. It's not a guarantee. Nothing, by the way, is a guarantee for hiring an employee. You never know what people are going to do. So that may be something to consider, is find some of those user groups and be able to do that. That might help you as well. So think about going that direction. And that may be that might help you as well. Use everything you could possibly use to give you the best chance when you walk in the door for that interview.
Okay. So actually, I'm earning a 2-year degree, associate degree in information technology, and I'm going to graduate in this summer. So that's why I'm thinking what to do next. So that's why I'm working on my CompTIA A plus certification.
I think it's a great idea. I think it's exactly, you're on the right path. You're getting the right certifications. You're doing the right things. And I mentioned in the chat room, people are going, did you say Microsoft user group? Yes. I think the Microsoft user group, a Linux user group, anything that matches back to what you're learning with these certifications and the type of job you want to get, those people at those user groups are hiring. So that would be one of the best ways to do it. I appreciate your call. Thank you so much. And make sure you send me that email so that I can find out more about what you're looking for as well. Be great to have that there. Back to the queue. Thank you for holding. But we might have even answered your question already, but you're welcome to ask one anyway. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Professor. This is Munir Rahmani. I'm calling from Virginia.
Oh, well, thank you. What question do you have today?
First, I have to appreciate from all the things that you have done. So I studied, I watched all of your videos for 901, then your study guide, and the question that you have 700 questions.
Yes.
The first time I went for a test and I passed that.
Nice.
Because all the materials that you provided for us was helpful.
That's great.
Second,
Congratulations.
I followed the first. Yeah, thank you, sir. And second, also I did those that I did for the 901, and I passed for 902 as well for the first time, for the first test that I took it.
Nice.
And
so you're A+
much
certified.
appreciated. Yes, sir. Much
Fantastic.
appreciated for all the things that you did, sir.
Quite welcome. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. Yeah,
Sure.
I have a question. That my question is that I'm going to study the network class as well. So I don't know what should I do. Should I study the videos that you posted on the past or the new one? I don't know.
This is always a query, a quandary whenever there's a new version of an exam that is released. So right now, for those who aren't familiar, as we sit here in April of 2018, there is a N10006 Network Plus certification that's been around for about 3 years. And a new version of this exam was released. The N10007 was released in the 1st of March. So now there's a new exam that's out. Normally, there are minor differences as you move from Network Plus version to Network Plus version to Network Plus version of the exam. And in this case, yeah, it's the same scenario. There's not a lot of differences between the 006 and 007. And as much as I say that, people for some reason, they just don't believe me or they don't want to believe me. But if you look at both exam, you can download both exam objectives, go through them, start crossing things out. There's not a lot that's changed. So one of the things that I usually recommend to people is take the version of the exam that best fits with what you're trying to do. But if you looked at both of the exam objectives, they're kind of similar. There's not much difference between them. So you can't go wrong. One of the challenges you have right now, though, because the exam's been out a month, is there is not as many 007 study materials available as there is a 006. There's much more 006 materials available. The Network Plus exam will be around until the end of August. So you have plenty of time this year to take the exam and pass it. Now, if you're like me, and it takes me a long time to study for an exam. It might take me a year. It might take me 9 months to study for an exam. So if I was looking at this right now, I might choose the 007 just because I know that's going to be around in 9 months to a year, and I'm not going to have to rush to get it done before the retirement date. But one of the things with the 006, there's so much more available, that might make more sense if you're trying to get it done in the next month or so. So you've got, either way, you're good, because whether you pass the 006 or whether you pass the 007, you get exactly the same certification. There's no difference. The certification looks the same, has the same information. It doesn't say what version of the exam you took. And so that it really doesn't matter which one. The ultimate goal ends up being identical to each other. So pick the one that makes sense for you.
Thank you so much, and have a great day.
Thank you, sir. I and you as well. I am having a great day. I have my window. Normally I don't open up the door to the studio, and you can't see it in this view, but there's a door that goes out of the studio right there, and I'm seeing people wander around outside. And I finally realized who it was, thinking, what's going on outside the studio with that? I'm never quite sure. Phone lines are open. Area code 855-785-7545. And you're welcome to call in and do that. Let's talk about some of the questions that came in the chat room. I want to find the macOS cloud-based service that I found this week. I haven't tried them, but it was $30. I thought it was pretty good. It was it Mac and Cloud? It probably was. It was Mac and Cloud. I know nothing about this company. I'm not promoting them. they're not an advertiser. I don't know anything about them. But I was trying to figure out what different options might be there. And the option they have is pay as you go. It's $1. It's really $30. You have to pay 30 hours first. 30 prepaid credits for 30-hour use. If there's multiples of you, I don't know if that fits into their policy to allow multiple people to access. You have to check their licenses. I know nothing of them, but that may be one way to do it. There are also a lot of inexpensive macOS devices available online on the eBay. You just need something that can run macOS 10. macOS 10's been running for 10, maybe more than 10 years. So if you got a system that was 10 years old that somebody was throwing out, but it ran macOS, you'd have everything you need to learn on the exam. So you don't have to have anything fancy to make that happen. Or maybe you've noticed here, there's an opportunity and you should start a pay-as-you-go service for macOS. Maybe that's what we should be doing. But it is hard to find that because there's such a in-user license agreement from Apple requires that you run macOS on Apple hardware. People in the chat room also asking about the questions from GTS Learning. You're more than welcome. GTS Learning I'm not GTS Learning. It's a different company with a different thing going on, but they're fantastic people to work with. You have any questions about their product offering, head over to the GTS Learning website. They've got a link you can click to talk to their sales folks. They are fantastic. They will answer any question you have. I have no insight into details of this. I know what they said they offer, and I stuck it up there, and I've seen it and used it. So if you can't find it, they will absolutely point it out for you. Because like I said, I use their books to do all of my videos. Such good stuff there. Back to the telephone. Communicating via voice from area code 240. What's your name, caller? Where are you calling from? Oh, I hear noises. Hello, caller. Are you there? Well, talking to the...
Hello?
I know. It's hello, caller. It's kind of hard. We're trying to figure out how to use phones again. What can we do for you? What's your name? Where are you calling from? You're listening to the stream. Listen to that phone. That stream's a few seconds behind. It's going to mess you up.
Hear me?
We can hear you. What's your question?
Hello?
Well, it was worth a shot anyway, wasn't it? Figure that out. It was we might want to give it a try again. You have to listen into the funny part of the phone that makes noises. We don't use phones anymore. We don't if it's a text message. That's why the chat room works so well for doing questions on all of these. Having those pieces available. There is the folks at GTS Learning can also tell you more. Folks are asking about those labs and all of those things there. Just make sure you follow my list there. That'll get you through. Let's try that 240 again. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Not really working out so well this time, is it? We tried. We gave it a good shot, I think. Oh wait, I gotta patch up. Hey, caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you. What's your question?
Hey, this is DeAndre here.
Listening to the phone, not the stream. It's complicated.
Washington, D.C.
What's your question?
Oh my God,
Me too. I agree there with those pieces and having that there and having all of those available. It's always a challenge. If you'd like to call in, you're more than welcome to. See, now I think I'm lower. We adjusted the camera just before we went live. It went okay. It's all right. I'm constantly doing that. And I have in front of me like three. I can see myself here. I can see myself up here. You can't see the one up there. And I can see myself in the camera that's here. So I see myself in three places, and I never can quite get it right. How many times do you have to have all of these things here to have it all working? So questions in the chat room. Let's see what we've got there. A person in the chat room sort of surprised I said to go to a Microsoft user group meeting. I've mentioned this in other study groups, and I think it's one that you should consider whenever you're working through all of these, is that whenever you're getting hired for a position, the person who's doing the hiring wants to be able to trust the person who's on the other side of the desk. It's a big part of the hiring process. You want to be able to know who's there. You want to be able to trust they're going to be there every day, that you're not going to hire them and then they're going to be flighty and leave in a week. And it's always useful if you already know somebody who works there. Not just from sometimes you can get them to help you with the process, but even if the person who's talking to you during the interview says, you say, oh yeah, I know Bob because I met him at the Microsoft user group meeting. That's how I know about this position being open, because people love to find people for positions. And a lot of these larger companies will offer the employees money to bring someone in and have them hired. So this referral fee internally within these companies. So if they know somebody, like I know somebody who's perfect for this position, not only can they get hired and get a job, but I'll get some money in my pocket. Let me get your resume in here. Whenever you go to these user group meetings, you're learning something at the user group meeting, certainly. It's soaking in, even if you don't understand everything. Some of it's soaking in, but you're meeting people. That's the whole point of this. You want to have a great LinkedIn page already set up, and at these user group meetings, because that's the way we communicate in the world of IT and other places as well, but mostly IT, is we link in with everybody we know and work with. It's not a Facebook. It's not some other method. We link in with them. And I've done this all the time throughout my career, is people will, they will call, I'll hear about a job opening in my company, and I'll go to my LinkedIn and go, I found something for you that'd be perfect if you're willing. Here's something write up what you're doing. Maybe you'd be interested in this, and just let them know about those things. So throw that in there. So how do you get there? What is that? Go to meetup.com, type in Microsoft user group and where you live. There's going to be a user group somewhere around for that. So make sure that you know what those things are. It's incredibly useful. I've had, in my IT career, I think we counted it up one time in a user group, 12 or 15 jobs, depending on how you count it. 12 or 15 different positions in IT. And the first job I got, I didn't know anybody there. I actually met the company during a college recruiting session. And I was in North Florida. They were in South Florida. I moved down to South Florida and started this job. Every other job since then, I knew someone who worked there. Every other job. So of those other 14 times I moved to a new job, I knew someone who was already working there. You can't discount that enough. It's very valuable to have that information there. That's my little tip for you. Meet people, and it goes a long way. Plus, they're great people that you're going to be working with your entire career. So that helps as well. Back to the phone, 775. Area code, are you there, caller? What's your name?
My name is Daniel. I'm calling from Reno, Nevada.
All right. Welcome, Nevada. What can we do for you today?
Yes. I wanted to find out, I have a friend who English is not the first language. Do you translate your videos to different languages?
Oh, it's always a challenge to be able to find something. I do transcribe every video, human transcription. So some of you may be familiar with YouTube, and you can put a video on YouTube and it will be programmatically computer transcribed by a computer. And for the type of stuff we do when we're dealing with these weird terms in IT, it doesn't do a very good job at all. So every video in my training courses, not the study groups, but my training courses, I send off to a service, and they watch my video and see the words on the screen and they type it in. So I get very good transcripts from the service. And I bring a bucket of money, I pour it over there, and they are able to do that. It is not in any way inexpensive. It's a rather expensive thing just to have it transcribed in my own language, to have that there. But I think it helps people where English is either not your first language, or interestingly enough, IT is not your first language. Because I'll use words like SCSI, and they're like, is that the SCSI? What are you talking about? There's strange terms we use. And so whether you speak English as your first language or second language, you can follow along, because the closed captioning on YouTube is that human created transcript. And of course, on my website, for every single video, I put the entire transcript there so you can read it. But other languages is always a challenge. I have people say, I need Spanish language. I need some Portuguese. I need German. It just keeps going and going and going. And to do those transcripts is a significant cost to be able to do it. And at the moment, I haven't quite seen the benefit, but I could be wrong. So is there a particular language that you would like to see made available for these as a transcription?
Yes, French.
Okay, and that's a perfectly popular and valid one to have there. The real challenge, of course, is finding the benefit. What I should do is do a course in a grouping of languages, and make that investment and see if it's something that would make sense. And I think some of the top 3 languages, French would probably be one of those. It's just a matter of deciding to make it happen and finding the resources to have it created. But I think that would be great for the A+. I don't disagree at all. I think it would be fantastic. It's really more of a money thing than anything else because I have the ability to do it. And somebody in the chat room was saying, well, what about a volunteer transcription to have something like that done? The problem is that I don't have control or an understanding of what I'm going to get from the volunteer transcription. It could end up being something that has nothing to do with the video that's being presented or something that's inappropriate in another language, and I just wouldn't have any idea. I would trust a third party more to do something like that, which is why I haven't, because YouTube allows you to have people contribute transcripts, and other languages is always the challenge. But it's something I will absolutely consider. And now that you've called about it, I really should put it at the top of my list of projects to work on for getting some additional transcripts done. It's a great idea.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thanks for calling. I appreciate it. And thank you for the input. And if anybody else has input on other languages, things you would like to see different in the videos, maybe add-ons to what's already there, I'm always open for recommendations for those things. So please let me know what makes sense, because I'm willing to try it. I'm just crazy like that. The only person making these decisions for this is me. There's no group of people. Maybe Mrs. Professor Messer would she's the one that came up with the books. So she's the one that said, I had digital, and she said, well, where's the book? I want to see it. Like, I don't have a book. There's no book. She goes, go make a book. What are you doing? She likes books. She likes the physical book. I said, well, okay, I'll do it. Nobody's going to buy it. Well, of course, it's incredibly popular. She's so smart. That's why she's really running the place, quite honestly, for this and having all those pieces. I do have a LinkedIn profile. It's not under Professor Messer. They don't let you do that on LinkedIn. They don't let you use a different name. But if you go to professormesser.com/LinkedIn, it goes there. Go to professormesser.com/ and then put a thing in, and I probably have a link there. Instagram. I don't have Snapchat because I'm too old. I'm not allowed. I actually saw in the terms of service of Snapchat, if you're too old, you can't use this. So there you go. It's not really in there. It's not really part of that. Phone lines are open. ProfessorMesser.com. You can /live. You'll see the number there, and it's on the screen, 855-785-RJ45. To do that there. Yeah, I know. The YouTube does have they have a subtitle. You can have people contribute subtitles. It's the other language of it. I would have to find somebody I trust that knows the language that can tell me, oh yeah, they didn't put anything ridiculous in here. You know, it ends up being something that's either inappropriate or not even close to what I'm saying. And that's not what we're trying to do either for those. So it's a little bit of a challenge there. Back to phone lines. 301 area code. Are you there, caller? Or what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, my name is Melanie. I'm calling from Maryland.
Hi, Melanie. Thanks for calling. What's your question?
Hey, hello. I recently passed my 901 certification, but I do have a couple of questions about 902.
Oh, congratulations. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. What would you suggest some things at home that we could do to get some hands-on practice?
Oh, always a good idea, but always a challenge because, you know, the A+ exam is only 3 years old, but of course, almost everybody now has moved off to Windows 10. Microsoft has done a very good job of getting people to upgrade all of their systems to Windows 10 to the point of they gave it away. And that's a really good reason to upgrade. And they got an enormous number of people upgrading. I should look at the numbers on my website. In fact, I'll do that as we're talking here, of the number of people that are using different versions of Windows, because I can see that of the people that are hitting my website. But of course, if you look at the exam objectives say you need to know Vista, Windows 7, and Windows 8 and 8.1. Well, there's fewer and fewer people using those operating systems these days, so it becomes more challenging to get hands-on with those. Now, fortunately, in Windows, there is a little bit of overlap in all of these things, because we know that in Windows, the way you get to control panel is almost always the same in these different versions. There's very little difference, in fact, between Windows Vista and Windows 7. So if you know Windows 7, you kind of got Windows down pretty good, at least Windows 7 and Windows Vista. But when you start looking at other things, it really becomes a little bit more of a challenge to can even find anybody with Vista anymore. You know, that becomes a challenge to find that. So that's where you run into kind of problems at finding these things and trying to find any hands-on. That's why I always mention the live labs, because they've just got everything there on the live labs. You're good with finding that on the live labs, but there's money you have to pay to get your hands on that. I have seen people find older computers, people giving away laptops that are ancient, and those laptops still have some of these older operating systems on there. That's one good way to do it. Microsoft, by the way, gives away virtual machines, and they used to do it with Windows 7. Let's check the website right now, modern.ie, like modern, like today, like MODERN. Is a website designed for developers to be able to test their browser-based applications. And they have a section there under Tools that has, show everybody on the screen, under Tools, there is an option for virtual machines. And they will give you Windows 7, Windows 8.1, and Windows 10 for free. Boom. And that's that. You just download them and use them. You, as part of the end user license agreement, you can't use this for production use. So these can't be used as your primary desktop. That's not why we're doing it. They're used for testing. And I looked through the end user license agreement. It's within the license for us to download these and use them for studies for A+ certification. So you can, and Windows 7 is almost just like Windows Vista. So you've effectively got everything you need in those virtual machines, and they've got versions that you can download for. Let me select Windows 7. Obviously, Vista isn't here, but you can download this for VirtualBox, Vagrant, VMware, Hyper-V, and Parallels. So it doesn't matter which virtualization you use. And VirtualBox, by the way, is free, and it's great. So download VirtualBox, install it on your computer, go to modern.ie, choose an operating system, and choose VirtualBox, and you can download the zip file and they give you instructions here. View the installation instructions on exactly how to install that VM and what you type in, and it's running in minutes. And you've got a full-blown Windows environment to work with. It's not a crippleware. It times out after, I think, 45 days, and you just download another one. It's always been there. So that's a great way to have some hands-on with these operating systems. If you're running Mac as your primary desktop, you can load it up in VirtualBox on a Mac, and now you got Windows running on your Mac front end. So it's a good way to get some hands-on without having to purchase anything.
That's an excellent answer.
So hopefully that'll get you there. Absolutely. Thanks for calling. That's I think that's one of the secrets of Windows. That's not in there. Okay, it's 90 days on the VMs. I thought it was 45. I thought they changed it. I thought it was 30 at one time. But there is a timeout, and they do that. It is 90 days. They did it. They did up to 90 days. Good job. See, the chat room keeps me honest. Let's look at those numbers I mentioned on the operating systems. And I'll just tell you what they are. I don't want to give away too much of my numbers here. But let's look at operating system numbers. So in Windows, of the people visiting my site, this is in let's do the last month. Let's do from March the 4th to April the 4th, today. And let's look at numbers of operating systems of people coming to my site. Now, primarily, I would guess Windows is going to be the primary operating system. So 64% of the people visiting my website in that month have been Windows users. And everything else is iOS, Android, Mac, Linux, Chrome OS. It goes down dramatically from there, obviously. And Xbox is number 10. There's 17 here, so let's show all of them. What is number 17 hitting my website? Symbian, PlayStation Vita. A Vita is on there. Who's accessing my site from a Vita? And a Nintendo Wii. There's just something wrong about that. But we were asking about Windows and the number of people using Windows. Let me drill down into Windows and tell you what percentage of people using Windows and hitting my site, what operating systems are they using? Windows 10 is 65% of the people visiting my website on Windows. That's significant. When you consider Windows 7 is 29% of the people using Windows and visiting my website. That's a big number to have there. Windows 8.1, 4.4%, 4.5% if I round up. 4.5% for Windows 8.1, the flagship of their Windows operating systems. Look how good a job they did at, well, I should say how good a job they did. We all saw that we had Windows up on our Windows 8 on our screens or Windows 7, and we went to bed, and then when we woke up, it had upgraded itself to 10. Microsoft it's not like they did a good job with this. They forced you into it. It really was a nasty upgrade process. Nobody was happy, but Microsoft was ready to take the hit, quite honestly. They were happy to take the hit to get everybody to Windows 10. And it's an overall strategy from Microsoft to get everybody on that operating system so they can really use that as a jumping off point for everything else. It's not a bad strategy. They really didn't make everybody angry, just some people, because the Windows 10 actually is pretty good. I guess that was the benefit. If Windows 10 had been a Windows 8.1 version 2, that would have been a tough one. But Windows 10 is pretty good. So that was an upgrade that they forced everybody into, and I continue to get forced upgrades to Windows 10 on my machines. Windows 8, 0.57%. Hardly anybody running Windows 8. I have Windows XP, 0.26% of people hitting my website running Windows are using Windows XP. And just because, last on the list, in number 9, Windows NT. Only one user and a single session, but they were running Windows NT. And if I have a way to look back the revenue numbers, the people using this operating system, how much revenue did it bring to the website kind of thing? $0 for NT users. Not too surprising. They spent as much money on my website as they did on their operating system. So there. But Windows 10 is that's what Microsoft did. Is it controlling us? Is it stalking us? A little bit. Yeah, absolutely. Can you disable it? I don't know. They gave us buttons we can push. They can disable it. Am I getting too into the weird? Am I getting too tinfoil hat? Probably a little bit. But this is kind of a problem with any operating system. Mac, Windows, Linux, you never really know what's happening under the surface. It's always nice to have some utilities that can help you understand what communication is going back and forth. On macOS, there's things like Little Snitch that are very good at telling you exactly the network communication. There's nothing like that really for Windows. You can have to do it externally or capture packets yourself. It's a little bit more of a challenge, but Windows 10 is so good. It does what we want. And now that this is what Microsoft was trying to do, now that everybody's there, now that you're either running Windows 10 or Windows 7, which is still pretty good, now that you're at Windows 10, now all of your developers can develop to Windows 10. That was really the goal, which is a great goal. That's what Apple's done with macOS. We're in macOS 10. Changes between versions of macOS 10 are relatively minor and certainly not a big shock to people using the operating system. You can go back 10 years with macOS 10, and a Mac user can easily do that. Can't do that with Windows. If you take Windows 10, you go back 10 years, what are you at? Windows 8? Very different kind of user interface experience. It's not all the same things there. You got all these weird things on the screen that are hanging out. So you don't know what they are for those issues. I run on my workstation that I primarily use for what I'm doing. I run macOS because it doesn't reboot when in the middle of a video render, which was why I dropped Microsoft like a 3-foot putt when I had an overnight render happening that needed to be done by the next day. And I come back in, and at 3 a.m, it had rebooted itself for a security update. Like I was in the middle of I was 4 hours into the render. It had 4 hours to go. and that was it. I might have said a bad word. I might have said something I wasn't supposed to say. And then I called my local Mac dealer and said, you better get me a machine to get that. But I do gaming because what else am I going to do? So on my Mac, I have they call it Basecamp. So I have a partition of Windows 10 and I can reboot into that partition. And now I'm flying a spaceship around. So that's how I go back and forth between those. So I will reboot at night, spend an hour, doing what I'm doing in the game, and then back to macOS before I leave the room. So that's how that works. And now I don't think about it. Now I have an integrated system with my phones. Now it automatically backs up. There's a lot about that that's just automatic. I don't have to worry about it. And that's the goal for me. I want to spend all of my time making videos for you and other content. And that's the real key in getting those there. Oh, good tip from Joe in the chat room who said, tell Windows 10 you're on a metered internet connection and the update will prompt you before downloading updates. Aha! That may be the secret right there, Joe. You may have saved me. I've gone through on many of you know I have the website, thebirdfeeder.live. I'll show it sometimes in the pre-show. And birdfeeder.live is the live stream box is running on Windows 10. So that's the backyard right now. No birds right now, but it's kind of overcast because it's been raining. But the whole streaming system is running on Windows 10. And then I'll come in the morning, it's rebooted itself. It's no longer doing the live stream because this is live. It's no longer doing the live stream. And now things don't work. The video isn't working properly. The audio isn't working properly because all of that updated itself. It's a challenge to have any of those things there. So instead, I just deal with it. I try to find the things they say online. If you don't want it to do updates, click this in the registry. Well, it doesn't work. Microsoft then adds an update that changes your settings in the registry so that it will update itself automatically. Microsoft, I know what I'm doing. Please let me do it. No, they don't want you to do it. So it gets annoying to have that there. They're figuring it out, though. There's been quite a group of people that have been arguing with Microsoft about it, and they finally decided, okay, you're right. Sorry, we're going to do a better job at this. They only said that, by the way, after they got everybody on Windows 10. So it's all very measured. Do not think that it isn't. They know exactly what they're doing. Oh, there's a change. So Rick in Colorado in the chat room says, went from Vista to Ubuntu. Now there's a change. In fact, that was a welcome change, I'll bet, Rick. I'll bet your system's even running better. Although the last versions of Vista ran just as good as Windows 7. Vista got kind of a bad name from the beginning because of the user account permission information and some of the operating system itself was unstable. But it got stable as a rock there near the end. But Ubuntu's great. So may have done a good job. I just can't do that because there's not a lot of options for video editing and video processing for Ubuntu. And no, I'm not playing Wing Commander when I flip over to DOS. When I flip over to Windows 10, I'm doing the EVE Online in there. That's what I do. So I'll fly around for an hour in space, do whatever that is, and then hit the sack. That's kind of get me out of the mode of doing these things. That's the real problem. The problem is finding something that can keep my interest. I have to find things very complex for some reason. Oh, see, there are some Vista users. You're the one that hit my site. Still running Vista. And those. Very nice. Very, very nice. I don't have time for hostile takeovers. I always find it funny in EVE Online, for the people not familiar, it's a space-based sandbox, for lack of a better term. You can do whatever you want in there with anything. And there's always drama. Everybody is, instead of having a guild, you have a corporation. And so there are corporations that try to take over other corporations and people steal from the corporations. It's a lot like any other corporation, I guess, like a real corporation. But I have my own company. I don't have time for any of that. I just want to get in, relax a little bit, and get out. That's my goal. I don't have time for the drama. I have no interest in a hostile takeover of a virtual corporation. I'm good with that piece of it. And those things. I would love to find games on a console or on something that was away from the computer, but console games just don't have the depth I'm looking for. I'm looking for something that goes just deep with lots of different options. So that's what I'm focusing on anyway, is try to find those and have those there. It's always a challenge to find exactly what you're looking for. So good example. So you have a friend who does asteroid mining, and they refer to it as Zen asteroid mining because it's very relaxing. It is one of those things that there are people that never leave the station in one of my, not in the corporation, but in the larger consortium, that they never leave the station because all they do is provide the products for everyone else. Just like somebody was they were manufacturing their own stuff and putting it out for sale, and that's all they do. They make all their money that way. And they make the space money. That's the objective of Eve, is whatever you want it to be. If you want to make space money, go make space money. If you just want to silently float through space, mining some stuff so you can get some space money to buy some goodies, that's good too. So that works well. So a question in the chat room, what do I think of the Bash terminal on Windows now? Haven't played with it a lot. I've watched some videos of people playing with it, or I should say being frustrated with it. I think Microsoft is trying to bridge some gaps there between the Linux world and Windows, and it's not quite there yet. They are figuring it out. They're putting their toe in the water and try to figure out what they're able to do with it. But they aren't quite 100% there. They know that PowerShell is kind of a good stopgap for people that need a lot of automation and functionality, and I think they should just go with that. I don't know that being able, there must have been a large organization, federal government, that wanted some ability to have a local Linux environment in a Windows environment. NSA. So I think that is probably what they are doing there, is trying to make that something that would work for everyone. It probably is built for a very specific function, and it works really well for that specific function. But of course, the federal government has different requirements than the rest of the world, and it doesn't work for everybody. So it's not native, right? They have Kali on there. They can run Linux. It's just not native. Well, I can do the same thing in a VM. So why am I trying to force something into Windows that I could just pop open a VM and do it? There's got to be a reason, though. There's always a reason. We just don't know what it is to have a reason. Rick in Colorado gives an update on his Ubuntu, moving from Vista to Ubuntu. Very efficient, low disk space, boots and shuts down in seconds. Doesn't it? It's just a nice operating system to use. If you're ever thinking of just you've got grandma, she wants to be able to browse around, and Windows, you know that we are the tech support for our families. And I've tried to put macOS on everybody's workstations, but it's that you can't do that for everybody. The Ubuntu, Mint, those types of the front end of Linux that's designed for easy use, that's a beautiful thing. You don't have to worry about it anymore. They're not getting viruses anymore. You just have to get, now of course the bad guys move to pop-ups in a browser. So that's what you now have to warn your family about, is anytime they say, call us, you have a problem, never call them. If they're calling you and saying there's a problem, they know nothing about it. They don't know what they're talking about. You call me. Don't give money to a stranger who called you and said they're Microsoft. It's a scam that continues to propagate and work extremely well. So don't do that. Don't go like that, Grandma. It's not what you want to do. And that's one of the challenges anyone tries to do. So just make that happen. The real challenge with any operating system, making it so I can support it with my grandma. If you can make that work, good. The problem is I have my family, I'd like to put macOS, just give them a macOS device, but they have to interoperate with other people that are running other operating systems, and they feel that Microsoft Word in macOS is not the same thing as Microsoft Word in Windows, and that's sort of true. They're not exactly wrong about that. It's very similar, but it's not quite the same, and they don't have time for that. So, yeah, the story this week, as Bob is bringing up, is the rumors that Apple wants to get rid of Intel and use their own CPU for their workstations, which sounds sort of ridiculous, but who knows? You never know what's going on the golf course. I don't know that Tim Cook plays a lot of golf, but it's the conversations between these companies. They need, Apple is at the mercy now of Intel, and Apple knows it. They're not at the mercy of Intel for their portable devices, but they're absolutely the mercy of Intel for their non-portable devices. I'm a perfect example of that. I was waiting literally a year for an update for a Mac Pro, and it still hasn't happened. Actually, it's been over 2 years since the Mac Pro was released. They did a little bit of an incremental update, and I ended up going with a iMac Pro recently in the last couple of months, just because suddenly I got a system available with the latest Intel architecture. So something's going on there between Apple and Intel. But I got a nice iMac Pro out of it. How many cores does this have? Like 18 cores? It's something ridiculous. It's an incredible difference. But that is a long-term change. And who knows that Apple isn't really just trying to leverage their relationship with Intel with that. But if I was Apple and had the amount of money they had and was already pretty familiar with making CPU chips, I might be looking at doing something like that myself. It's interesting, the circle, because this is the way it used to work. Effectively, with the PowerPC and the other types of older technologies with Apple, they didn't do anything with Intel. Then they moved everything over to Intel. Is the pendulum swinging back again? We don't know. We're not sure. Yeah, there is that idea that Apple is going to integrate iOS with macOS, at which point I'll just join everybody over on Windows. I don't think that's going to happen either. Apple has had the challenge of losing kind of their professional groupings. They're trying to make up for that. Everybody's kind of hanging in there because as someone who does editing and creating content on macOS, I've seen the focus on that disappear. As soon as they sold all those iPhones and sold all those iPads, of course they're going to spend more time over there. Now, are they looking at coming back the other direction? How interesting. I don't know what that it really is. It may just be posturing. It may be Apple trying to get a better deal, or it might be legitimate, and suddenly we're going to see a chip company, a chip factory show up in North Carolina somewhere, and suddenly it's pumping out chips for Apple. They're going to be self-sufficient. And as a company with their size, maybe that's a pretty good idea. It's not a bad idea. I would agree with the folks in the chat room who are saying, stop trying to make desktop operating systems work like a mobile operating system, and stop trying to make a mobile operating system work like a desktop operating system. Those are two different things that have two different purposes that should not be combined. You can integrate them, but don't make it the same thing. What are you thinking? You've lost your minds. They really think they're doing the right thing. This is the problem at the higher levels with, I'm talking a lot, but nobody's calling in, so I'm just going to talk. I think we're done with the calls. But at the upper levels of a company, there does get to be kind of a bubble. And they have this idea in their mind that, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make the Mac and the iPad, it's going to be the same thing. Everybody says, that's a great idea. Same thing. And then they just go, not even thinking. Apple's a little bit better about that. But they've done a few bad things with their operating systems through the years. And that's a challenge with trying to make that happen. And I don't know if they're really working it that way, or if they're trying to posture. You never know to have that there. I have an iPad. I have macOS. They're two different things that have two different functionalities that work in my world in two different ways. And like I mentioned, I like, on my off hours, I like to play a game on the system that is deep, and it's complex, and it's rich, and it's hard, and it's something there's a big learning curve. I don't like a game where I just hit a button, bring. That's not, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for, plus I'm an old guy. I don't have the reflexes for bring. I can't do that. So I want something that challenges me intellectually. I want something that I can get into it. And there's a lot of different ways to go. I want depth. And you're never going to see that on an iPad, at least not in the next number of years. They're not designing the iPad for that. The iPad is for the bulk. It's for the curve. It's for the middle of the curve. That's what they're shooting for. And I have lots of stuff that I do in the middle of that curve. But as soon as I want to do stuff on the outside of that curve, now I need something more complex. I need something that's ready for me to be able to do that. Is it VM? I don't know. Maybe. I'm waiting for my new VM system to come. The new Pro. What is it? The new Plus or whatever it is from HTC. The Vive Pro, Vive Plus, Vive thing. I'm pre-ordered. We're going to see. We're going to see what's there. Somebody's dared to call in. How dare you, caller? What's your name? Where are you calling from? Got to pot you up there. Hey, caller, where are you calling from?
Hey, my name is Luther. I'm calling from Memphis, Tennessee.
Thank you for calling, Luther. Oh, I love Memphis. I got to get back up there. What can we do for you today? What's your question?
So, cores of a processor versus RAM.
Yeah.
When trying to set up a virtual machine, which one is more important?
Gosh, it's that's a kind of a loaded question, because I guess it really wonders. The big consideration is, what is your virtual machine going to be doing, and it's kind of how that focus is. And it's not one of those questions where there's a definite, oh, this one's more important or that one's more important, because it really does depend on what the VM is doing. And if I had to separate it out, because you probably will get a question like this in study materials that you're going through, that I would guess you got to go two ways with this. Some operating systems are going to require a lot of memory, but Windows, what does it need to get going? 4 gig? It's not a lot just to get Windows running in a VM. But what if in that VM you had an enormous spreadsheet that you were running that took up another bunch of gig? Okay, well, you're going to need to double the amount of memory that Windows is going to need. Maybe it's going to need 8 gig to be able to operate in this system. Okay, well, there's your requirement there. But what if it's rendering? What if I've got a video and I'm using that as a remote rendering device? Now suddenly memory isn't the big deal. CPU cycles is the big deal, and it's going to be churning through them. Or maybe it's going to be doing cryptocurrency mining. Don't need a lot of memory, but I need a lot of CPU. So it really is going to depend on what your application is. What is this thing you're running in that VM to make it happen? It's not going to be an absolute in every single circumstance. Is this a very specific question, or is this more of a generalized exam question, Luther?
Well, it's just a general question. I was trying to set up some VMs so I could work on my A+ skills.
Yep.
Like the command line and everything. So I was just using it for that.
And I think if you were just doing that, you could go with the bare minimum of what that particular system required for RAM, and you'd be okay. Obviously, it's going to need a lot of space on the drive. It's going to need at least 4 gig or so on the drive, 2 to 4 gig to get the operating system running. You'll need 2 to 4 gig to get it turned on. But if all you're going to do is pop open a command line and run some pings and trace routes and try different things in the VM, you probably don't need any additional CPU. It doesn't need a CPU upgrade. I'll often tell people, if that's all they're doing, if you can run Microsoft Word, then you could probably launch a VM as long as you've got the memory available to run it. You'd be fine. Some older systems, and I mean really older systems, you're like 4 or 5 years old, may find some of the newer operating systems really pull at the CPU more than you might expect. So if it's an older box, yeah, I get it. You probably are going to run into a CPU problem, but most of your modern systems can run a VM without even blinking. Anything that's on the floor at Best Buy can run a VM or two right in there with nothing extra. And one good way to tell is go to modern.ie, download a VM, install VirtualBox, see what happens. And you'll be able to tell immediately.
Cool. You've answered all my questions. Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Luther. Appreciate the call. I have such fun doing VMs. And of course, there are tons of VMs you can download from many places on the internet. There was one for Security Plus I was doing earlier in the year where I needed to show a firewall running an intrusion prevention. I needed to show all the IPS rules. I just downloaded a VM that already loaded up pfSense with a graphical front end. I hit go, went right to what I wanted, and in minutes had the exact screenshot I wanted to show. That's how easy it is to get a firewall and an IPS running in Linux. It's already pre-built. You just load it up in the VM. Now, security professionals will tell you that's not what you want to do because you don't know who built it. You don't know what else is in there. I get it, but for what I needed, that was what I did with it. So that's how I do those work through those challenges, is make that happen. That's always it's always a challenge for me anyway, is finding all of those. So in the chat room, people are saying, nope, for what I do, I need lots of CPU. Other people are saying, nope, I need lots of RAM. So it just depends on what you need and where it comes from. You're absolutely right. You need to figure out which one of those things works for you. If you don't know, try it out. I use monitoring software in Windows and in Mac that's constantly looking at how much CPU I'm using, how much memory I'm using. So I can see when I'm running a virtual environment, I can see exactly how much of that memory is being used by that virtual environment and how much CPU is being used. Part of my problem now is I've got a Mac with 128 gig of memory. So now nothing hits the memory. I sort of over-engineered this thing. I get it. But I'm doing so much with video, and maybe someday I want to do 4K. I'm going to need all of this. But I can watch it move. I can monitor all of it. Let's see if I can even show some of it. So if I'm showing memory, yeah, this is pretty good. So I can, if I've got on my screen, there's the memory pull down on my screen. So it breaks out for me app memory, how much memory is being used by what. Here's the different processes using the memory. So right now, the most memory on my machine, Google Chrome's using 3 gig. Slack is running, so it's using 1 gig. Pathfinder, which is my file management. Microsoft OneNote and some other processes happening down underneath for storage. No swap memory in place because I've just got so much raw memory in here, and how much is going back and forth. Then I can break it down from there. Yeah, no, Chrome will cache tons of information that's there. So that's why it's showing such a large amount there available, which is great. That's what I want. So in my Chrome right now, though, is the chats. I've got other dashboards up that are handling the calls. I've got, people are saying, 3 gig, that's nothing. Got nothing running. And I kind of shut everything down except those things to have that there. Some people are saying they're seeing M2 SSDs on motherboards. Will we see questions like that on the A+? On the A+, you need to know everything that's part of the exam objectives. You don't need to go anywhere outside the exam objectives. And currently, the exam objectives don't have M2 on them. I would bet end of the year when the new exam comes along, I'm sure they're going to include M2s because that just makes sense for what they're doing. So chat room, I'm already getting the chat. You're absolutely right, Novus. 128 gig, isn't that overkill? 18 cores. What are you talking about? Have you lost your mind? Pretty much. Yes, I have lost my mind. So let me clear that up. But I consider, here's my thought about this. I mentioned earlier, I was waiting a year for Apple to introduce new hardware that would be a significant upgrade that would justify the cost that allow me to do the video productions that I needed to do. That's a long time to wait. In fact, when I finally was ready to turn in my leased machines, I lease everything. And the last one, I leased it with I was going to lease it to, you can lease in different ways. You can lease it so at the end of the lease, you can buy it for $1. You can lease it so at the end of the lease, you can pay the current market price for the device and you can own it. Well, I did, when I leased it originally, the previous system, I leased it so that at the end of it, I would pay full market price if I wanted to keep it, with no intention of keeping this. In 2 years, I was going to swap this out and get the latest stuff, except nothing was available. And then another year went by. Now I'm still paying my monthly lease cost. This is the catch you. That's how they get you. So I'm still paying my monthly lease cost. And now finally, a year plus later, Apple says, we got a box that's significantly different. I'm like, okay, I got to get that one. I can't wait any longer. And this was all done through Apple. There's an Apple lease. And so I called the leasing company and says, okay, I'm sending this back to you. And they said, well, you've had it for so long, it's worth $30. So it was worth nothing. So I actually paid the $30 to keep it. And it actually the week my new system was arriving, the graphics card in the old system started to go bad. So amazingly, so for a couple of days, I limped along, backed up the whole system, moved it over. And whenever you replace an Apple with an Apple, doing the migration, you just push a button and you go to sleep and you come back and it's done. So the new system is running exactly the same stuff that was on the old one. But the lease was the issue. So on this one, I thought, I'm not going to be caught again not having hardware to move to in 2 years. I can't. Apple, I like your stuff, but I can't trust you. So obviously this is the problem with Apple and Intel, ultimately, I think, because Apple's feeling the hurt too from their customers. So I said, let's get a system that I could use for 4 years, which you really don't want to do. But now that they had systems that were so specced out, 18 cores in this processor, 128 gig of memory, just load it up. Just everything, just take every specification and put it at the top and lease it for 2 years with a $1 buyback. So at the end of 2 years, I will buy this for $1 and I will own it. But with that level of specification, I could move to 4K video now instantly and be able to edit it with no problem. I think it's a 8 gig graphics card in this thing. I mean, it's something stupid. 16 gig. It's a 16 gig graphics card, a Radeon Pro Vega 64. So 16 gig graphics card. I'm ready for 4K. I'm not planning to do 4K, but I can't trust that this hardware is going to be available for me in 2 years. So that's why you're not wrong. That's a ridiculous specification that I put on here, but I didn't build it for now. I built it for 2 years from now. So that was my thought process. Was that the right move? Ask me in 2 years and I will tell you whether it is. And people are of course saying, well, I don't know if that's what you should have got. You don't have a choice with the iMac. It's an iMac. It's just the screen in front of me. You get whatever comes with it. And that's the other. Apple has said, we're working on a modular Mac Pro where you can swap in and out the things you want. I don't have time for that. I got to do stuff now. My other system was breaking. So that's what pushed me. Where would 4K make a difference? For what I do, you'd be able to look at this face in beautiful 4K resolution. Why wouldn't you want that? Of course you want that. No, there's no good reason for me to go to 4K at the moment. Maybe when we get to a point where everybody's got a 4K screen, everybody's running 4K on their laptops, everybody's running 4K on their desktops, you're going to want a video when you maximize it that does take advantage and is very clear to look at. It's not fuzzy. You want something that has that looks nice. But right now, no, there's no good reason to run for me to do 4K. I'm not doing because I've got 4K. Obviously, this is like a 5K screen, but I've got 4K televisions, and you have to go to YouTube to find 4K content or other streaming services because your local provider is not even providing 4K. And it's beautiful landscapes. It's train rides through the country. It's beautiful. But that's not what you're looking at right now. You're looking at the screen and with lights. There's no 4K content. In fact, I'm streaming right now at 720p. That's how bad I am behind the scene there. And I've been looking at different products to allow me to do 1080p streaming just so it would look a little bit nicer for those of you that are watching the live stream. And we will be doing that shortly. I've got some things set aside that, again, it's just money. It's just putting money into it. That's the only thing. That's the only problem. Phone calls. You guys have been waiting for a few minutes. Thank you for holding. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, my name is Daniel, and I'm calling from Colorado.
Hey, Daniel. Thanks for calling. What's your question?
It's a simple question, I'm sure. So bear with me while there's a short or perhaps long preface.
All right.
Thank you so much for everything you do. I've been studying for the past 3 months for Network Plus, using almost exclusively your material. I don't have any other certification, so that'll be my first one.
Great.
I'm scheduled to sit for that exam probably in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
In addition, I just got into a training program for Security Plus, which is kind of what I'm trying to hustle, that Network Plus.
Yep.
And so here's my question. Conceivably by, let's say July, the training program is 12 weeks. So conceivably by July, I'll have a Network Plus and a Security Plus. My question is this. I understand the mechanism of, okay, well, I've got my A plus, so in ostensibly 3 years that will expire. I'll take a next exam higher and renew both the A plus and whatever it is, perhaps Network Plus at that point, et cetera. So I understand that taking a higher level exam will renew your let's say lower level one.
Correct.
Having said that, I appear to be taking these exams completely out of order. So here's the question. What's it going to look like if I were to roll out with those 3 certifications this year? Does that mean over the next 3 years I'm like trying to get CEUs for all of those certifications?
Thankfully, no. The way CompTIA looks at the renewal process is that they have put all of their certifications in a particular order from highest to lowest. And whenever you're trying to renew a certification, if you own multiples of these CompTIA certifications, you work on renewing the highest level certification that you've earned. So if you have earned an A plus and a Network Plus, you only have to worry about renewing the Network Plus, and it renews everything underneath it, which is the A plus. If you have a Security Plus and Network Plus and A plus, you only have to worry about renewing the Security Plus, and it renews everything underneath it, such as Network Plus and A plus. And they have a big list on their website that shows what's higher and what's lower associated with that. If you were right now, you have your A plus certification, if you pass your Security Plus right now, it would renew your A plus immediately, and you'd be on the 3-year timer. If then you took the Network Plus would now be kind of out by itself. Network Plus doesn't renew Security Plus, and since Security Plus is the highest one you earn, I don't know if Network Plus would renew A plus. It might. It might renew your A plus, or it might not, because CompTIA is expecting you to renew your highest level certification. I think, though, most people, once you get above A plus, Network Plus, Security Plus, I think most people are going to end up taking the CertMaster CE, because you pay like $120 or whatever it is, and it renews whatever that version of the certification is. So I think that's what most people will probably end up doing, and not a lot of people will be sort of rummaging around for gathering CEUs, although you could. But you gather the CEUs for the highest level certification that you've attained, and all the rest will take care of itself.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. I got into, I should have just looked at the website, but this did make an opportunity for me to call and say thank you, so there's that. But I did get in kind of a brain or logic problem where I was like, well, I'm either just going to have to get a better certification every 3 years or just renew all my certifications all the time.
No, that would be awful.
That makes a lot of sense. It would be challenging indeed. Okay, cool. Well, again, thank you very much for what you do. I've watched almost all of your Network Plus study groups that are archived, which was a little disappointing because now I don't have any more to watch, but thank you. Yeah, thanks very much.
I'll keep making more. We'll do another one next week.
I'll be there. Thank
Okay.
you.
I appreciate it. Thanks for calling. That's great. So you got the right idea anyway of getting all those. And quite honestly, reading the CompTIA website, not as easy as it sounds, really. Quite honestly. 405 area code.
405 area.
Okay. All right. Nice. It's the Cylons. I have a feeling this is all of these. We're gonna drop him out. I think these are all the same. Let's find out if that's the same caller. 530 area code. Yep. Well, it's a nice idea. That was cool. That was a nice thing to do. It's always good to take the technology and bend it back on itself. And it works. They said it couldn't be done, and it absolutely does. One of the things that in fact, whenever I start looking at that, we'll do this. The thing that I like to do whenever I get to the end of these things and trying to figure out what certification am I going to do, just like that last caller said, is you do have to kind of go through the CompTIA website. But I was mentioning to others, the CEU, there's this new thing where you can do one thing and renew your certification. And I said that many people are the ones that are working on that. And it is let me find the exact thing that you can see on the screen is renew with a single activity. This is the easiest way to do this. And it's the CertMaster CE. Look, I have to click so much to get into it. Come on, CompTIA. There's CertMaster CE A Plus, $100. Network Plus, $175. Security Plus, $175. You buy this one thing, you take it. It's like 4 to 6 hours duration for Security Plus, for all of them, 4 to 6 hours duration. It's sort of an online training, and you have to take a test on there to get it done. And whenever you do that, you're recertified. That's it. You don't pay CEU fees. You don't gather CEU credits and all that nonsense and upload them. You just simply pay your $175, take the course, the online test, 4 to 6 hours, and you're done. Certified. Why wouldn't you do that? That's the easiest way to do it. I don't have to take another test. I don't have to gather a bunch of CEUs. I don't have to pay CEU fees. That's the way to go. So if anybody's in that situation where you're trying to figure out what do I do, that's what you need to do. That's the perfect thing to do whenever you're working through it. So hopefully that'll work out for you as well. Well, that's I think 2.5 hours for a study group is a pretty good distance. I think my throat made it. So I think that's how we go through all of those. We figure out when's the throat going to leave us, and then we try to go from there. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Thanks for being here for the Q&A that we did in the first hour. Thanks for your calls and your experiments with the phone system in the second hour. Thanks for your chats in the chat room, and just thanks for your ongoing support. We could not do this without you. Come back next week. Next Wednesday is the Network Plus study group. Of course, come back next month for the next A Plus study group. You can always find out what's going on at the calendar at professormesser.com/calendar. Thank you for being here this time as well. We will see you next time on the A Plus study group.